Chapter 123. Arriving at Central Emperor Province. The grand occasion of Tianxia Tower. Early the next morning, looking at Luo Xingchen, who was still sleeping soundly in his arms, Xingchen's lips curled up, a look of smugness on his face. Just as he was about to quietly get up, he discovered that Luo Xingchen had already opened her eyes, looking at Xingchen with a smug look and a slight curl to his lips. Luo Xingchen gave her husband a charming glare, muttering, "You rascal." In her heart, how could she not know what Xingchen was thinking? Then she said, "Husband is awake." Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Xingchen said with a smile, "Yes, seeing that my wife was sleeping so soundly, I figured my wife was too tired yesterday, so I couldn't bear to wake her up." Seeing the smile in Xingchen's eyes, Luo Xingchen couldn't help but blush. Seeing his wife's blushing face, Xingchen immediately said, "Wife, what your husband means is that yesterday my wife was too tired from explaining the 3,000 great Taos to the family, so—" Before Xingchen could finish speaking, Luo Xingchen interrupted her husband with a look of shyness, gave Xingchen a charming look, and said shyly, "Husband, Luo Xingchen will help husband get up." Luo Xingchen didn't dare to let Xingchen continue. With her husband's personality, if she let Xingchen continue, who knows what he would say? Looking at Xingchen's embarrassed expression, Luo Xingchen couldn't help but chuckle and said softly, "I'll let you act strange again." The two of them joked around for a while before getting up and coming to the living room. Looking at the huge Bodhi divine tree in the back mountain of the Yao race, and the various treasures constantly emanating from the direction of the back mountain, Xingchen knew that it was the people of the Yao race comprehending the 3,000 great Taos, emanating the law divine light. Looking at Luo Xingchen's excited expression, Xingchen smiled slightly and said, "Wife, your husband is leaving. There is a surprise from your husband to his wife in this storage ring. You can only open it after your husband leaves." After Xingchen finished speaking, he took a step and disappeared. Looking at the direction her husband disappeared, Luo Xingchen smiled slightly and thought to herself, "Husband always likes to act strange." Looking at the direction her husband disappeared, Luo Xingchen swept her divine sense and found a jade bottle and a jade talisman in the storage ring. Opening the jade talisman and placing it against her forehead, Xingchen's voice entered Luo Xingchen's mind. "Wife, there are 20 Chaos Great Emperor pills in this bottle. After the 20 immortal Emperor powerhouses of the Yao race take them, they can directly break through to the Great Emperor realm, and they can obtain heavenly Tao's recognition without experiencing lightning tribulation. Let them take it, wife, so that including you and Luo Old Ancestor, the Yao race will have 22 Great Emperor realm powerhouses. With such strength, even when facing those real hidden world forces, there is no need to be afraid." Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Xingchen looked at the white jade bottle in the storage ring with a shocked expression, with disbelief on her face. There is such a divine pill in the world? Could it be refined by her husband? Such a divine pill must be extremely precious. Could it be that her husband is not only a 9th-rank alchemist? At this moment, Luo Xingchen thought in shock. However, at this moment, in the jade talisman, Xingchen's voice rang out again. "Wife, your husband knows that you will definitely be shocked, and you will definitely think, was it refined by your husband? Is your husband beyond a 9th-rank alchemist? And you will definitely think that such a divine pill must be particularly precious," and so on. Hearing the proud laughter from Xingchen in the jade talisman, Luo Xingchen blushed, and Xingchen's voice continued from the jade talisman. "Wife, you must remember that anything in your husband's eyes is not as good as a strand of your hair, a smile. You and I have a connection of hearts, and we will definitely understand your husband's heart." At this moment, hearing the voice coming from the jade talisman, Luo Xingchen's pretty face was flushed. Looking at the direction Xingchen disappeared, her eyes filled with tenderness. At this moment, Xingchen had already taken the teleportation array and arrived at the largest city in Central Emperor Province, Central Emperor City, which is also the only city named after a province. Looking at this huge city in front of him, Xingchen swept his divine sense, and it was at least 10,000 miles in size. Its majestic and imposing aura, and he didn't know what materials it was built of, and it was emitting a faint divine light. Looking at this giant city, Xingchen couldn't help but sigh. As expected of the province with the largest area in the 5 provinces, just a city is so big. Originally, seeing Shenlong City, Xingchen already thought it was big enough, but now seeing Central Emperor City, he realized that Shenlong City is like the difference between heaven and earth in front of Central Emperor City. Moreover, the immortal spiritual qi in Central Emperor Province is dozens of times richer than that in Southern Emperor State and Eastern Province. No wonder the powerhouses in Central Emperor Province are more numerous than in other provinces, and even the major hidden world forces are entrenched in Central Emperor Province. There's a reason for this. Entering Central Emperor Province, Xingchen observed slightly and found that even ordinary human race in Central Emperor City had a much higher cultivation level than the human race in Southern Emperor State and Eastern Province. Along the wide street, Xingchen strolled leisurely with sky, stealing sun switching. Suddenly, countless exclamations came from the front. Xingchen swept his divine sense and immediately discovered that countless powerhouses were flying towards the center of Central Emperor City at high speed. Xingchen couldn't help but be curious and followed towards the center. With great difficulty, he arrived at the center. Xingchen discovered from a distance that a 9-story building was surrounded by people. Hearing the discussions from the people around him, Xingchen couldn't help but curl up his lips. It turned out that the 9-story building was the Tianxia Tower established by Yuan Long and Qing Feng. Xingchen didn't expect that Tianxia Tower would be so popular in Central Emperor Province. Alas, have you heard? This Tianxia Tower has launched a new dish today, but unfortunately, we can't afford it all. Who says otherwise? It is said that this Tianxia Tower has extremely powerful forces, and even the chefs of Tianxia Tower are immortal Emperor Realm powerhouses. Being able to have an immortal emperor as a chef, there is no restaurant in the entire divine wilderness continent with such courage. Moreover, the dishes produced by Tianxia Tower are all ancient and long-lost dishes. The beauty of the taste is the best in divine wilderness. Yes, and many forces, seeing that Tianxia Tower is so popular, wanted to threaten Tianxia Tower and ask it to hand over the recipes, but they were directly thrown out. It is said that anyone who comes out casually is a great emperor powerhouse. This great emperor powerhouse, even in the newly emerged hidden family, is an old ancestor-level figure. Now, in Tianxia Tower, he is just an ordinary shopkeeper. Tell me, how powerful is the force behind this Tianxia Tower? Yes, after this incident, no force dared to attack Tianxia Tower's idea again. But it's a pity that people like us can only smell the aroma outside. It is extremely difficult to eat a dish. Who says otherwise? Not to mention that the price of this Tianxia Tower is not something we can afford. Just wanted to enter Tianxia Tower to eat, which one is not a top divine wilderness force. If you have money, Tianxia Tower will not serve you. Yes, alas. Look at those who enter it. Which one is not a well-known figure in the divine wilderness continent? When they arrive at Tianxia Tower, if they want to eat, they still have to abide by Tianxia Tower's rules. If they don't abide by the rules, sorry, we won't serve you either. Hearing the discussions of the people around him, Xingchen smiled slightly and praised in his heart. He didn't expect Yuan Long and Qing Feng to have such business acumen, and they actually took the high-end route. Not bad, not bad. Looking at the crowded crowd outside Tianxia Tower, Xingchen sighed in his heart, directly transmitted his voice to Yuan Long, and then flew directly towards the entrance of Tianxia Tower. Everyone looked at this scene and showed disdain. There were too many people who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and wanted to attract the attention of others every day. In the beginning, there were still many people who exclaimed, and even countless women screamed, but every time, no one was able to enter Tianxia Tower. Over time, the onlookers became accustomed to it, and later, when they saw such people, they would show disdain. However, the next moment, a scene that shocked countless people appeared. Many people saw this scene and widened their eyes with a ghostly expression. The originally lively scene around Tianxia Tower was also instantly silent. Chapter 124 Hahuan Sex Saintess loses all face. At this moment, the surroundings of Tianxia Tower were instantly silent. Everyone widened their eyes, looking at the scene before them in disbelief. At this moment, a man in white robes wearing a mask had just landed at the entrance of Tianxia Tower, and countless people were looking at him with disdain, wanting to see him make a fool of himself. Sure enough, the next moment, a woman wearing a gorgeous flowing gauze palace dress, with a hot figure and stunning beauty, spoke mockingly. Humph, there really are all kinds of people. Is Tianxia Tower a place that anyone can enter? Get out of the way and don't block Martial Saint and this saintess. Hearing the voice from behind, Xingchen frowned slightly. The road to Tianxia Tower was wide enough. Not to mention 2 people walking side by side, even 10 people walking side by side would not feel crowded. Moreover, when he landed, he did not block the gate of Tianxia Tower. Now that this woman actually said this, it was obvious that she was doing it on purpose. Turning around to look at the woman behind him, whose face was quite beautiful, with an arrogant and mean look on her face, she looked at Xingchen provocatively, and occasionally revealed a charming smile to a young man beside her. Xingchen hated this kind of self-righteous woman the most. Suddenly, many onlookers around them whispered when they saw this woman and the young man beside her. "Hey, look quickly. Isn't that Hahuan's sex saintess, Meng Yuyu? This woman is a famous social butterfly in God Emperor Province. Countless powerhouses have fallen for her charm. It is said that she is now very close to Wu Lingfeng, the young master of the Hidden World Forces Tianwu Pavilion." A young man in blue, looking at the hot figure of Meng Yuyu, said to his companion, "That's right, it's her. This masked man has offended her today. I heard that the last person who offended her had his sect implicated, and the end was extremely miserable." The blue-clothed man's companion also glanced at Meng Yuyu and said, "If I'm not mistaken, the young man beside Meng Yuyu should be Wu Lingfeng, the young master of Tianwu Pavilion. It is said that this son is extremely strong, domineering, and young. He is already at the immortal sovereign realm, and he is born with a human king divine body. Divine might is unparalleled, and his aura devours the universe. That's right, it is Wu Lingfeng, the young master of Tianwu Pavilion, a prodigy from the Hidden World Forces. It is said that he came out this time for mortal world experience to prepare for breakthrough to the immortal Emperor realm." At this moment, listening to the discussions of the people around him, the young man had a calm expression, while Meng Yuyu proudly held Wu Lingfeng's arm, almost hanging on Wu Lingfeng's body. Looking at Xingchen with a provocative look, Meng Yu didn't know why, but from the first time she saw Xingchen, a sense of inexplicable disgust arose in her heart. In fact, with Meng Yuyu's status, she was not qualified to come to Tianxia Tower at all. It was only last night that she managed to get Wu Lingfeng to agree to bring her to Tianxia Tower. She originally wanted to enter Tianxia Tower in the envious eyes of everyone, but she didn't expect to be overshadowed by a masked man. So she spoke out, telling Xingchen to get out of the way quickly. In fact, Xingchen did not block Meng Yuyu's path at all. At this time, Xingchen glanced at Meng Yuyu, heard the discussions of the people around him, glanced at Wu Lingfeng indifferently, and turned to walk towards Tianxia Tower. Seeing that Xingchen didn't take her seriously at all, Meng Yuyu was instantly furious. A flash of red light appeared in her hand, and a long whip emitting a crystal-clear red light appeared in Meng Yuyu's eyes. "Are you deaf when the saintess speaks to you?" As soon as she finished speaking, the long whip with red light, with terrifying power, lashed towards Xingchen. Without any reservation, it directly attacked Xingchen's head, causing everyone around to let out a cry of surprise. Many people couldn't help but think to themselves, "What a ruthless woman." Hearing the sound of breaking through the air from behind, Xingchen seemed not to have sensed it and continued to walk towards Tianxia Tower. A sinister smile appeared on the corner of Meng Yuyu's mouth. However, the next moment, 12 figures emitting a powerful aura suddenly flew out from Tianxia Tower. One of the stunningly beautiful women wearing green clothes was even more filled with killing intent, directly striking towards Meng Yuyu's direction with a palm. Meng Yuyu's terrifying whip was directly shattered by the stunningly beautiful woman's palm, and the stunningly beautiful woman's palm continued unabated, heading straight towards Meng Yuyu's direction. Feeling this palm, full of killing intent, Meng Yuyu was actually shocked by the stunningly beautiful woman's killing intent. She stood there blankly, her eyes widened, her whole body unable to move, with a look of horror. The Wu Lingfeng beside her, feeling this terrifying palm, changed his expression slightly for the first time and exclaimed, "Great Emperor Powerhouse!" At this moment, Meng Yuyu, hearing Wu Lingfeng's words, couldn't help but tremble. Looking at the terrifying palm getting closer and closer to her, she couldn't help but let out a scream of "ah." Suddenly, a calm voice sounded. "Qing Feng, stop. This woman is like a dung beetle. Don't dirty your hands." Hearing this voice, the terrifying killing intent disappeared instantly, and the stunningly beautiful woman's palm was only a foot away from Meng Yuyu. If it weren't for this voice, Meng Yuyu would have definitely died here. All of this happened in a flash. By the time everyone reacted, the stunningly beautiful woman had already returned to the entrance of Tianxia Tower. At this time, someone let out a cry of surprise. "I'll go look quickly." Meng Yuyu. Hearing this voice, everyone turned to look at Meng Yuyu. At this time, Meng Yuyu was trembling uncontrollably, her face full of horror. However, the large patch of wetness under her feet made her blush instantly, wishing she could find a hole to crawl into. Wu Lingfeng, who was beside her, frowned and moved away from Meng Yuyu with a look of disgust, covered his nose, snorted lightly, took a step and disappeared. He had no face to stay here any longer. At this moment, everyone around Tianxia Tower looked at Meng Yuyu with a gloating expression. This was simply huge news. The Hahuan sect saintess was actually scared into incontinence. This was simply a huge joke. At this moment, Meng Yuyu's face was flushed, her whole body was trembling. Looking at Wu Lingfeng, leaving her, and the gloating expressions of the people around her. Even if her skin was thick, she finally couldn't help but let out a miserable cry of, "Ah," and disappeared in a flash. I'm afraid that from this moment on, the incident of the Hahuan sect saintess being scared into incontinence will spread rapidly throughout the entire Central Emperor province like it has grown wings, and then spread rapidly to the other 4 provinces. The next moment, a scene that shocked everyone around them appeared. This scene was even more surprising than what happened just now. The entire Tianxia Tower was surrounded by people who were whispering and gloating, discussing Meng Yuyu. The next moment, the surroundings of Tianxia Tower were as if time had stopped. Everyone stood there blankly, their eyes bulging out, their faces full of disbelief. Chapter 125: The Shock of the Crowd. Meng Yuyu's Hatred. At this moment, among the 12 powerhouses exuding terrifying aura, one was known to everyone. It was actually the manager of Tianxia Tower, Great Emperor Powerhouse Yuan Long. It was also this person who threw out the forces that wanted to come to Tianxia Tower to cause trouble and demand the recipe one by one. As for the remaining 11 powerhouses, everyone was shocked to discover that the stunningly beautiful woman with murderous intent just now was also a Great Emperor Realm powerhouse. The remaining 10 people are also terrifying Immortal Emperor Realm experts. Seeing this scene, everyone's face was filled with shock. Who would have thought that 2 Great Emperors and 10 Immortal Emperor powerhouses were hidden in one Tianxia Tower? Tianxia Tower's strength alone is already catching up with the top forces in Divine Wilderness. Then, in other words, how powerful will the force behind Tianxia Tower be? However, the next moment, what happened made everyone dumbfounded and unbelievable. It was as if time had stopped, making everyone stand there dumbfounded. I saw the 12 powerhouses of Tianxia Tower looking at Xingchen with excitement, kneeling on one leg towards Xingchen and respectfully clasping their fists with both hands and said, "Young master." Looking at Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others, Xingchen smiled slightly and said calmly, "Get up." Hearing Xingchen's words, Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others respectfully got up, and then, in the surprised eyes of everyone, they crowded Xingchen and entered Tianxia Tower. At this moment, the people around Tianxia Tower came to their senses, and dozens of figures disappeared in a flash. It seems that these figures wanted to report this important news to the sect as soon as possible. The scene changes inside the 9th floor of Tianxia Tower. This floor is not open to the public. It was specially prepared for Xingchen after Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others discussed it. The decoration is extremely luxurious. At this moment, Xingchen was sitting in the main seat, listening to the report from Yuan Long and Qing Feng. Xingchen nodded in satisfaction. During these days, the two not only allowed Tianxia Tower to gain a firm foothold in Central Emperor Province and made a name for itself, but also made the other 4 provinces heard of Tianxia Tower's reputation. The only pity is that there is no useful news, but they have earned a lot of top-grade spirit stone. Looking at the storage ring containing top-grade spirit stone handed over by Yuan Long, Xingchen shook his head slightly and said calmly, "Now that the great era is coming, this emperor's speculation has been verified. Now I am here to ask you what your plans are for the future." Hearing Xingchen's words, Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others' expressions changed drastically. They immediately knelt on the ground and said to Xingchen, even their titles changed. "Master, do you not need us anymore?" The sudden change of Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others made Xingchen slightly stunned. He immediately waved his hand, and an uncontrollable force helped them up. He looked at them with a serious face and said, "This emperor will only tell you once, and only this once. You are rewarded to this emperor by the system, just like this emperor's brothers. At any time, You are the people this emperor trusts the most, and this emperor has never regarded you as outsiders. You're not allowed to call this emperor master again in the future. I have never thought of not wanting you. This time I am asking you, because in this emperor's heart, you are the most trusted people. Being helped up by Yi Xingchen's power and hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others looked moved and ashamed. They did not expect that in Yi Xingchen's heart, he had already regarded them as brothers. Looking at Yi Xingchen a little embarrassedly, the few people looked at each other and said to Yi Xingchen in unison, "This subordinate will listen to master, young master's arrangements, and will not hesitate to die." Looking at Yuan Long, Qing Feng, and others, Yi Xingchen nodded slightly and said, "Now that the great era is coming, hidden world forces are all emerging one after another. Above divine wilderness, there is even a divine realm. In the future, you will follow this emperor to fight in the divine realm and stand on the peak. Now, the first step is to improve your strength. The rest will remain the same for the time being. However, with your current strength, top-grade spirit stone will be of no use to you." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xingchen waved his hand, and 5 million high-grade divine stone exuding rich immortal spiritual qi appeared in front of Yuan Long and Qing Feng and others. And then he said, "These high-grade divine stone are enough for you to use for a long time. There are also 10 Chaos Great Emperor Pill here. Dragon 1, Phoenix 1. You 10 can take them directly to break through to the Great Emperor realm without having to go through lightning tribulation. Today, Tianxia Tower will be closed for a day. You 10 should strive to break through to the Great Emperor realm. Starting tomorrow, in addition to maintaining the status quo, investigate whether Heavenly Dao Sect will open the ancient God Cemetery in advance." Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Yuan Long and others nodded immediately. Then, looking at the millions of high-grade divine stone exuding rich immortal spiritual qi in front of them, and the Chaos Great Emperor Pill exuding a rich fragrance, Yuan Long and Qing Feng and others looked at Yi Xingchen with respect in their eyes. "All right, put everything away and go back to prepare. However, Phoenix 1, please give this emperor some delicacies first. I'm hungry, and this emperor will also taste Phoenix 1's craftsmanship." Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, everyone's faces showed smiles, and Phoenix 1 even said excitedly, "Young master, please wait a moment. Phoenix 1 will prepare it for young master. As long as young master likes it, Phoenix 1 will prepare something different for young master every day." Hearing Phoenix 1's words, Yi Xingchen smiled and nodded, making Phoenix 1's face full of excitement. After everyone went out, Yi Xingchen came to the window and sat down, looking at the bustling central emperor city outside the window, and muttered to himself, "This emperor's goal is not only to make Tianxia Tower famous throughout divine wilderness, but to resound throughout divine realm." At this moment, in the residence of Hahuan sect in God Emperor City, countless Hahuan sect disciples were whispering, "Have you heard? The saintess actually lost control of her bladder out of fear. How could I not have heard? Now the entire God Emperor City knows about it. All you know is to please that Wu Lingfeng. What's the use? You're still showing off in front of us, saying you're going to Tianxia Tower for dinner today, but what happened? Hee. So embarrassing." A charming woman with a coquettish look said to several Hahuan sect disciples around her, "Hey, don't mention it. Now our Hahuan sect is also losing face, and we don't dare to go out." "Who says it isn't? Shoo, keep your voice down. Don't let the saintess hear you." A young man with an evil face said to his fellow disciples, "What are you afraid of? If you do something, don't be afraid of others talking about it." Besides, after the elder heard about this, he was directly recalled by the sect. It's not certain whether her Meng Yuyu will remain the saintess. The charming woman glanced at the room where Meng Yuyu was and said with disdain. At this moment, Meng Yuyu, sitting in the room, clenched her fists tightly when she heard the voices coming from outside the room. Her nails almost pierced her palms, and she gritted her teeth without saying a word. Whether it was the pain from her palms or the voices she heard outside the room, Meng Yuyu's face was pale at this moment. Her eyes were filled with deep resentment, as if she could devour people alive. Her entire face was almost distorted, and the corners of her mouth twitched nonstop. Thinking of Tianxia Tower and the gloating expressions on the faces of the people around her, as well as Wu Lingfeng's disgusted look when he left her, Meng Yuyu's eyes became even more frantic. Thinking of that white-robed figure, Meng Yuyu's murderous intent almost turned into substance. Even the people outside the room felt the temperature drop instantly. This figure has now become her nightmare. At this time, Meng Yuyu's body began to emit a faint black mist. If there was a powerhouse here, they would be shocked to discover that this black mist is a strong resentment. It is also the time when the mind is most easily controlled. Suddenly, a seductive female voice sounded in Meng Yuyu's ear, and a ball of black mist appeared behind Meng Yuyu. Do you want to have powerful strength? Do you want to take revenge yourself? Do you want to trample all those who laugh at you under your feet? Come on, accept this emperor's power. This emperor will make it all come true for you. At this moment, hearing this voice, Meng Yuyu instinctively trembled. The blood-red eyes were slowly replaced by black, and the black mist on Meng Yuyu's body became thicker and thicker. The ball of black mist behind her also slowly disappeared. A shrill and Marries' voice suddenly sounded from Meng Yuyu's body. Come on, fully accept this emperor's power. Everything will be trampled under your feet. The next moment, Meng Yuyu's whole body shook violently, and her eyes turned completely pitch black, with no emotion in them, extremely cold. At the same time, an immortal emperor powerhouse from Xingchen family flew towards the main hall with a nervous expression, as if something terrible had happened. Chapter 126, Qin Chuanqiu's Scheme, Signing in for the Void God Pill. At this moment, a Xingchen family immortal emperor powerhouse flew toward the main hall in obvious panic. Upon entering, faced Qin Chuanqiu, who sat upon the principal seat, and cried out in horror. Reporting to the family head, the demon sealed inside the demon-locking stone has broken free and escaped. Hearing the immortal emperor's words, a strange black gleam flashed in Qin Chuanqiu's eyes as he replied, elderly, as an immortal emperor and a member of the Xingchen family, you must remain calm at all times. A mere demon is nothing to fuss about. That demon has long since been completely controlled by this emperor's hell-blood sea. She thinks she's escaped, but she's merely walked into my trap. It's time to throw the Central Emperor province into chaos. For years, I kept that demon alive, only to extract the devilish qi from her body to cultivate my hell-blood sea. Now that my divine art has reached major achievement, and my cultivation broken through, a trifling demon is beneath notice. When Qin Chuanqiu finished, imperial might rolled off him in surging waves, shattering layer after layer of the surrounding void. Immortal radiance enshrouded him, and the aura he released was actually the unsurpassed cultivation of the heavenly emperor realm. Sensing that terrifying pressure, Elderly immediately dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead to the ground as he exclaimed in excitement, "Congratulations, family head, on completing your divine art and breaking through to the heavenly emperor realm." As he looked at the kneeling elder, Qin Chuanqiu's eyes flashed black. Within the golden immortal glow surrounding him, wisps of black qi were interwoven, though no one noticed. "Enough, rise. Tian'er has likewise broken through to the immortal emperor realm, and with the heavenly Dao golden list emerging, it's time for the Qin family to make its stance clear. But first, let the myriad flowers divine palace feel the might of a hidden world force. Elderly proclaim my decree. Have great uncle Qin Wudao lead 10 great emperor experts and 20 immortal emperors to raise the myriad flowers divine palace and all with the Qin family's renown. As for the Yao race, once the myriad flowers divine palace is leveled, this emperor will personally lead a force to wipe out the Yao race entirely. Tian'er tells me the Demon Empress possesses unmatched aptitude, as pure as a lotus rising from water, graceful and alluring. Back in the divine wilderness continent, countless powerhouses were captivated by her. This emperor would like to see exactly what charm this woman possesses. After hearing Qin Chuanqiu's words, Elderly respectfully bowed and replied, "I obey the decree." Once Elderly turned and vanished, Qin Chuanqiu's eyes flashed black. He sat cross-legged, and behind him the rotating hell-blood sea appeared. Boundless black devilish qi surged forth, accompanied by shrill wails. It seemed endless demons were trapped within. Qin Chuanqiu turned to look at the blood sea behind him and muttered, "My divine art is complete, yet you still dream of controlling this emperor. Pure fantasy." As his words fell, the boundless sea of blood behind him roiled. The endless devilish qi formed a terrifying face that let out a mournful shriek before slowly fading, and the vast blood sea reverted to crimson once more. The scene shifted to Tianxia Tower, where Xingchen absently rubbed his stomach and remarked to Phoenix One beside him, "Not bad, truly a long-lost ancient delicacy. Eating it is pure enjoyment, an unforgettable aftertaste. The exquisite flavor is beyond words." "Excellent, excellent." Hearing Xingchen's praise, Phoenix One excitedly replied, "If the young master enjoys it, Feng Yi will prepare different dishes every day. Then I'll trouble Feng Yi. All right, tidy up. You may withdraw and take the Chaos Great Emperor Pill to raise your cultivation." Listening to her excited words, Xingchen smiled faintly, nodded, and spoke. Once Phoenix One left, Xingchen stood, removed the sky-stealing sun switch from his face, and gazed at the bustling scene outside the window. Remembering he hadn't signed in today, he spoke directly to the system. System, start today's check-in. The instant his words fell, the system's voice sounded beside his ear. Ding. Check-in progress successful. Congratulations, host, on receiving a reward. 1 Void God Pill. Void God Pill, a heavenly Tao grade divine pill. After consumption, the host can directly break through from Ancient Emperor Realm into Ancestor Emperor Realm, Void God Realm, reaching the absolute limit the Divine Wilderness continent can sustain. Ding. Check-in progress successful. Congratulations, host, on receiving a reward. The Boundary Breaking Pestle. Boundary Breaking Pestle, a gradeless secret treasure capable of shattering spatial barriers, ignoring spatial laws, and barrier hardness. Any spatial wall can be broken. The pestle vanishes after use. Hearing the system's voice, Xingchen curled his lips slightly. The system had never disappointed him. From the system space, he took out that Void God Pill. The pill was ringed by endless laws. Without the system's concealment, the terrifying might released by this single pill would be sensed by every powerhouse in the Central Emperor province. Looking at the golden divine pill, Xingchen smiled faintly, opened his mouth, and swallowed it. In the next instant, a terrifying energy detonated inside Xingchen's body, an impact akin to colliding stars that instantly destroyed his internal organs. Xingchen's expression changed drastically. An indescribable pain made his face go deathly pale. At this moment, his breathing grew weaker. Nearly every organ in his body had suffered severe damage, and that terrifying energy continued wreaking havoc within him. Were it not for Xingchen's great Tao Chaos body, whose physique was incomparably strong, he would long since have exploded under the Void God Pill's overwhelming power. In truth, Xingchen had no idea that although Ancient Emperor Realm and Void God Realm were only one realm apart, the difference was like heaven and earth. No matter how powerful an Ancient Emperor, they still could not be called a god, whereas Void God Realm, though the lowest among godly realms, was the level of divinity spoken of by the people of the Divine Wilderness. Tianlingzi was of this realm, single-handedly suppressing the demon race passage for countless epochs. Such was the might of the Void God Realm. Fortunately, as if sensing the changes in Xingchen's body, streams of green life force surged from the depths of his sea of consciousness, continuously repairing his damaged organs. It was the terrifying life force emanating from the divine ring behind the Ancient Emperor, divine infant deep within his sea of consciousness. Seated within Xingchen's sea of consciousness, the divine infant ceaselessly absorbed that fearsome energy, then released waves of green life force that swiftly restored his organs. As the divine infant absorbed more and more energy, the divine ring behind it grew increasingly solid. At last, the terrifying energy inside Xingchen was completely absorbed by the divine infant, and the originally somewhat indistinct divine ring now suddenly burst with 10,000 rays of divine light, carrying boundless divine might. Every organ in Xingchen's body seemed plated with a layer of golden divine light, and even his bones radiated streaks of golden divine light. As if struck by sudden enlightenment, Xingchen knew he had broken through. At some point, he had already sat cross-legged. A golden divine ring behind him released endless divine charm. One glance could pull a person in, carrying inexplicable mighty power. At this moment, Xingchen was a true god. The divine charm he radiated made people want to kneel and kowtow. Fortunately, the black tortoise concealment technique was active. Otherwise, the entire divine wilderness would sense this divine charm and be compelled to kneel and kowtow. In the next instant, the divine ring behind Xingchen vanished as he slowly opened his eyes. Immediately, boundless divine might erupted from his eyes, as though they contained the cosmos, the stars, the rotation of sun and moon. Now Xingchen was the one and only true living god in the entire divine wilderness continent. Chapter 127. The demon race reappears. The mysterious man of Tianxia Tower. At this moment, inside the Hahuan sect's residence in Central Emperor City, several powerhouses exuding terrifying auras looked at a number of dried corpses with horrific expressions, their faces filled with rage. Among them, a bewitching middle-aged woman with a voluptuous figure exuded an irresistible charm. She turned to Meng Yuyu, who stood silently with her head lowered, and asked, "Yuyu, were you in your room? Did you notice anything unusual in the courtyard?" The woman's voice was as seductive as a nightingale's song, intoxicating and irresistible. Upon hearing this voice, Meng Yuyu seemed to snap back to reality. Looking at the enchanting woman before her, she knelt down and said listlessly, "Reporting to Master, this disciple, because of that incident, felt as though her soul had left her body. When junior brothers and sisters outside mocked me loudly, I seal my 5 senses. I had no idea such a terrifying thing happened in the courtyard. It wasn't until Master entered the room that Yu Yu learned what had happened outside. It turned out this middle-aged woman was Meng Yuyu's master, Grand Elder of the Hahuan sect, Meiji. Hearing Meng Yuyu's words, the several powerhouses of the Hahuan sect exchanged glances, a hint of helplessness and relief flashing in their eyes as they looked at the kneeling girl. Looking at her disciple, still kneeling in a daze, Meiji spoke. Stand up. This matter has nothing to do with you. Don't dwell on that incident. It was merely an instinctive reaction when facing irresistible danger. Our Hahuan sect acts as we please, unconstrained by others' opinions. Return to your room and rest well. Your master and senior martial uncles have matters to discuss. Only after hearing Meiji's words did Meng Yu slowly rise, turn, and walk back into her room. Once inside, the listless look vanished. The corner of her mouth curled into a sinister smile, her body exuding a demonic charm, black glints flashing deep in her eyes. Outside the room, several voices of discussion drifted in. Return to the sect at once and report. Demons have appeared in Central Emperor City. Let the sect master decide. Collect these dried corpses and bring them back. Such cruel methods. Apart from the demon race, no one can rival them. Indeed, these disciples died horribly. They must have endured something terrifying. Their flesh and blood were drained, leaving only dried corpses. Apart from the demon race, I truly can't think of anyone so vicious. Only the demon race feeds on human race flesh and blood. The Great Era has just arrived, and the demon passage in Avicii Hell was sealed by demon clan Emperor Xingchen. Could there be another place on the Divine Light continent connected to the demons? Could the demon race truly be about to emerge as well? With the Divine Wilderness Great Era approaching, will it become a calamity for the Divine Wilderness? Enough, whatever the case, report it to the sect first. The sect master will have a plan. Meiji's seductive voice rang out, and the voices outside instantly fell silent. Meanwhile, listening to the voices outside, Meng Yuyu's lips curved in an evil smile as she thought to herself, Xingchen, just wait. For all these years of pain you've caused this sovereign, you'll pay it back. You thought you could control this sovereign with the hell blood sea. You even dare to cultivate using this sovereign's devilish chi. While it lets you break through realms quickly, the wonders of devilish chi are beyond what your human race can control. Sooner or later, Xingchen, you will fall onto the demonic path and become a complete lackey of the demon race. Now this sovereign has fully occupied this girl's body. I'll recover my strength slowly, and once my realm is fully restored, the entire divine wilderness will become a slaughterhouse of blood and food for me. Illusion Demon. At this moment, Meng Yu seemed a completely different person, black demonic light gleaming in her eyes, her face icy cold. The female demon who had escaped from the Qin family had possessed her body, turning her into a true demon. The scene shifted inside the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. In a luxurious room, Hua Shuyan gazed at the fully refined Lu Jin lotus platform in her hand, her pretty face blushing as she murmured to herself. What are you doing right now? Are you thinking of Shuyan too? At this moment, looking out the window at the sky, Hua Shuyan gazed toward Eastern Province, her eyes full of tender affection. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of thin air. Seeing Hua Shuyan's lovesick expression, the newcomer shook her head helplessly. It was Lu Ruosu. She looked at Hua Shuyan, a subtle expression on her lips as she spoke. Does the palace master know that something happened in Central Emperor City today that shocked everyone? Hearing Lu Ruosu's words, Hua Shuyan slowly turned around. Seeing the subtle look on Lu Ruosu's face, she became intrigued and calmly asked, "Oh, Aunt Lu, tell me about it." When Hua Shuyan asked, Lu Ruosu spoke up. "Palace master, have you heard of Tianxia Tower?" Tianxia Tower? How could I not know? In the whole Central Emperor province, there's probably no one who hasn't heard of it. All the delicacies, there are ancient flavors long lost. I've only been there once. The taste truly deserves to be called #1 in the divine wilderness. Rumor has it Tianxia Tower's origins are extremely mysterious, intriguing many forces. After all, even a single chef, there's an immortal emperor, and the manager is a great emperor powerhouse. Who wouldn't be curious about such a Tianxia Tower? Could what Aunt Lu mentioned be related to it? Hearing Lu Ruosu's words, Hua Shuyan spoke immediately. The palace master guessed correctly. It is indeed related to Tianxia Tower. As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Ruosu recounted what had happened outside Tianxia Tower that day. Upon hearing this, Hua Shuyan finally understood why Lu Ruosu had worn such a subtle expression. The Hahuan sect saintess had been so frightened she lost control of her bladder. Truly shocking. Regarding this matter, Hua Shuyan could only silently sympathize with Meng Yuyu. She wasn't particularly surprised that Tianxia Tower had suddenly produced 2 great emperor powerhouses and 10 immortal emperors. What stunned her enough to stand up was that these powerhouses had actually knelt on one knee before that mysterious man. She looked at Lu Ruosu and asked in disbelief, "Aunt Lu, is this true?" Hearing her question, Lu Ruosu nodded slightly and replied, "I personally went to Central Emperor City to investigate. By now, every force in the entire Central Emperor Province likely knows about it. All are secretly probing into this mysterious man." After Lu Ruosu's confirmation, Hua Shuyan nodded and then said, "Next, major powers will surely send people to visit Tianxia Tower to sound things out. After all, too many people covet what Tianxia Tower possesses." Hearing her words, Lu Ruosu nodded and added, "Looks like the Central Emperor Province won't be calm anymore, especially with the appearance of the Heavenly Dao Golden List. Without mishap, the Heavenly Dao sect will start the ancient god cemetery ahead of schedule." Just as Hua Shuyan was about to reply, the entire Myriad Flowers Divine Palace shook violently, and an arrogant voice rang out, causing both her and Lu Ruosu's expressions to change drastically. The two exchanged glances and immediately flew toward the source of the voice at top speed. Chapter 129, The Qin Family Strikes, Myriad Flowers Divine Palace in Peril. At this moment, the entire Myriad Flowers Divine Palace shook violently as an arrogant voice echoed through every hall. "The reclusive Qin family pays a visit to Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. Open the grand array at once and come out to greet us." Hearing that insolent declaration, Hua Shuyan and Lu Ruosu paled. Their eyes met, and Hua Shuyan sighed. "So they've truly come? Aunt Lu, come with this emperor to take a look." The moment the words left her lips, she stepped out and vanished. She reappeared above the Divine Palace, gazing through the sect-guarding array at Qin Haoyan and the host of powerhouses beyond. Hua Shuyan's pupils contracted. She knew the might of the reclusive Qin family, had expected their arrival, and had long since made preparations. She had assumed they would bring at most 5 great emperors. Yet 10 great emperor experts now stood before her, proof of the hidden family's terrifying strength. After all, counting the newly advanced Lu Ruosu, Myriad Flowers Divine Palace possessed only 3 great emperor experts, especially the white-haired, crane-visaged elder beside Qin Haoyan. Not a trace of aura leaked from him, yet he exuded overwhelming pressure. Though utterly devoid of presence, the old man gave Hua Shuyan the sense that he alone reigned between heaven and earth. She frowned again. In mere days, Qin Haoyan had broken through from immortal lord realm to immortal emperor realm. Surprised, she stared at the proud, aura-flaring Qin Haoyan outside the array and said coldly, "What meaning is there in your reclusive Qin family bringing so many to assault my sect unprovoked?" Qin Haoyan merely curled his lip, ignoring her and looking instead at a huge teleportation array below, his face full of disdain. At that moment, countless disciples of the Divine Palace, as if summoned, gathered atop a massive transport formation. Every disciple gazed up at Hua Shuyan with reluctance, a flash of white light, and yet every disciple remained within the array. Hua Shuyan, the 3 great emperors, and several immortal emperors finally changed countenance. Lu Ruosu cried out in alarm, "Heaven-sealing grand array!" Seeing their shocked faces, Qin Haoyan burst into laughter, as though venting days of pent-up fury, cackling madly. "Ha ha, Hua Shuyan, so you did make preparations. But you're not stupid, and this young master isn't either. After so many days, I knew you'd have a plan, so I've already deployed the heaven-sealing grand array around Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. Its purpose, to stop you from escaping, be it teleportation arrays, instantaneous shift talismans, or laws of space. None can function now." Watching Hua Shuyan's ashen face, Qin Haoyan felt long-suppressed emotion erupt and roared with laughter. "Ha ha ha! Hua Shuyan, this holy son once said that after Avicii Hell ended, I would visit Myriad Flowers Divine Palace and let you witness the might of the reclusive Qin family. And now you cower inside your sect-guarding array. So this is how Myriad Flowers Divine Palace treats its guests." Hua Shuyan answered with a cold snort. "I've never seen such guest etiquette. If you come as visitors, why attack my mountain guarding array? Is this how the illustrious reclusive Qin family pays, calls upon other sects?" Her words choked Qin Haoyan for a moment. Then he declared, "Hua Shuyan, this holy son won't bandy words. A mere divine wilderness power dares provoke a hidden world force. Today, I raise Myriad Flowers Divine Palace to exalt the Qin family's fame." Hua Shuyan gave a mocking laugh. "At last the wolfish ambition of your Qin family is spoken. Dream on. Even 100 great emperors couldn't break my sect-guarding array, let alone a mere 10. She had cause for confidence. As a top force of the divine wilderness, Myriad Flowers' divine palace's protective formation, the 9 wondrous floral array, ranked among the 3 strongest defenses in the wilderness, its foundations laid upon an entire immortal spiritual vein and its 3 talent eyes. Qin Haoyan shook his head in contempt. A frog in a well knows nothing of the vast sky. Today this holy sun will show you the true might of the reclusive Qin family. The instant his voice fell, the 10 great emperors struck without mercy, blasting toward Hua Shuyan's position. Boom! The entire Myriad Flowers palace shook violently. A golden energy shield rose like rippling waves, then gradually calmed. The sect-guarding array assumed its 3-talent stance, firmly protecting the divine palace. Qin Haoyan frowned. He had not expected a wilderness powers array to be so formidable. Boom! 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 Explosions continued. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the 10 great emperors were panting, having even used their life-bound divine weapons. Yet still they could not breach the array. Qin Haoyan turned to the white-haired, crane-visaged elder beside him and respectfully cupped his fists. Great-grandfather, please act and break this array. At his words, the quietly resting elder slowly opened his eyes. Divine light flashed, and he stepped forward, pointing toward Myriad Flowers' divine palace. In an instant the winds and clouds changed color. Heaven and earth fell silent. A terrifying might erupted from his fingertip, turning into a black divine light that carried boundless power and slammed into the sect-guarding array. Boom! Heaven and earth quaked. Myriad things shattered. The terrifying shockwave spread for 100 li. Everything around the divine palace instantly turned to dust. A storm of energy swept up countless clouds of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the 9 wondrous floral array still shone with dazzling golden light, completely unscathed. Inside the palace, every disciple was sent reeling, blood trickling from their mouths, ears deafened. They stared in shock at the white-haired old man who showed no aura at all. Within the array, an ancient great emperor ancestor of Myriad Flowers' divine palace cried out in alarm. Between heaven and earth, I alone am emperor, a heavenly emperor realm supreme being. Hearing the ancestor's shocked cry, Hua Xian was likewise stunned. Heavenly emperor realm? Aren't great emperors the strongest in the divine wilderness? At this moment, gazing at the crane-haired, child-faced elder standing calmly in the void realm, that ancient great emperor's eyes were filled with disbelief. This old woman learned by chance that above great emperor lies the heavenly emperor realm, knowledge lost since the primordial immortal demon war. Only members of the reclusive families know the true stages after great emperor. Upon hearing the ancestor's words, Hua Shuyan's face changed. With such terrifying attacks, the 9 wondrous floral array would not last long. The colossal noise drew powerhouses within 100 li of Myriad Flowers' divine palace. They gathered and witnessed a scene that stunned them. The reclusive Qin family was assaulting Myriad Flowers' divine palace. This earth-shaking news spread rapidly in every direction. Qin Haoyan merely curled his lips. He wanted every wilderness power to know the fate of offending the reclusive Qin family and to witness their might. Meanwhile, the crane-haired, child-faced elder frowned slightly upon seeing the array still intact, as though surprised a strike had not broken it. The next instant, boundless aura finally surged from his body. He raised his hand and pointed again. A world-annihilating energy turned into a thick black dragon, lightning-like, once more blasting toward Myriad Flowers' divine palace's array. Experts of the surrounding powers, sensing the limitless pressure in that finger, could not help thinking, Myriad Flowers' divine palace is finished. Chapter 130. Arrogant Qin Haoyan, the terrifying heavenly emperor realm powerhouse. At this moment, Hua Shuyan also sensed the horror of that finger. She immediately cried out, 3 old ancestors, take the 3 talent formation nodes and reinforce the mountain-guarding grand array with me. At Hua Shuyan's order, the 3 great emperor experts of Myriad Flowers' divine palace flickered into place, each occupying one of the 9 wondrous celestial flowers array eyes. Hua Shuyan likewise erupted with immortal spiritual qi, channeling a terrifying surge of energy into the grand array. In the next instant, the 9 wondrous celestial flowers array radiated shafts of divine light, while countless golden petals drifted down from the void into the array. At this moment, the array reached its peak defensive strength. If it failed to stop the white-haired old man's strike, the consequences were unthinkable. The next moment, the old man's fearsome blow collided with Myriad Flowers' divine palace's sect-protecting grand array. A blinding white divine light flared, dyeing the entire sky white, forcing countless onlookers to shut their eyes. So terrifying was the strike that it produced no sound at all. Yet the calmer the surface, the greater the horror hidden beneath. Sure enough, when the white light faded, the hidden observing factions shrank their eyes. Inside the array, Hua Xin and the three great emperors all bled from the corners of their mouths and crashed to the ground, clearly suffering severe internal injuries. Though the sect-protecting array had not shattered, everyone could see it was on its last legs. The golden petals in the void had stopped falling, and the array's golden divine light had dimmed. All present knew. One more strike, and the array would collapse. Watching the bloodied Hua Xian on the ground, Qin Haoyan curled his lips in a wicked smile and called out, "Hua Xian, do you now realize how utterly insignificant Myriad Flower's divine palace is in this saint's eyes?" Seeing her fallen and bleeding, the fury in her gaze, Qin Haoyan felt a surge of perverse delight. His eyes roamed over her flawless face and perfect figure as he sneered. "Hua Xian, if you consent to become this saint's woman, today's annihilation can be averted. Myriad Flower's divine palace will then belong to the hidden Qin family. How about it?" The surrounding divine wilderness factions, hearing this, were filled with sorrow for the doomed rabbit. Hua Xian wiped the blood from her lips, lifted her head, and calmly replied, "In your dreams." Qin Haoyan showed no surprise. He merely continued, "Hua Xian, this saint's strength rivals yours, and my status is far nobler. Becoming my woman would be your supreme fortune. Would you truly watch so many delicate beauties of Myriad Flower's divine palace perish with you?" His words struck at her deepest fear. Her expression changed, and she fell silent. Suddenly, Lu Ruosu's voice rang out behind her. "Palace Lord, do not heed him. His face is full of malice. Even if you yield, our disciples will meet no better fate." "Correct. We swear to live and die with the sect. We would rather fight to the death than submit." Every disciple of Myriad Flower's divine palace rose, weapons in hand, eyes blazing with defiance as they shouted in unison. Hearing them, Hua Xian lifted her gaze, saw their unbending will, and her eyes turned resolute. "Good. I stand with you. Rather die in battle than yield." Hovering in the void, Qin Haoyan's eyes flashed with venom as he declared, "Umph. I gave you your chance, Hua Xian. Before absolute power, do you think death comes easily? In a moment, great-grandfather will shatter this array, and even if you beg for death, you won't obtain it. Then this saint will cripple every disciple and make them Qin's slave girls to suffer humiliation and die in despair. As for you, Hua Xian, lofty palace lord, I will take good care of you and show you the price of offending the Qin family. Weren't you and that demon clan emperor Xingchen making eyes at each other? Once we raise Myriad Flower's divine palace, the Qin family will crush the demon clan, and I'll bring you there and let you taste true despair before Xingchen himself." "Ha ha ha!" Qin Haoyan threw his head back in wild laughter, his wicked grin drawing furious glares from every disciple. "Great-grandfather, please shatter this array and capture everyone alive to uphold the Qin family's might." At his words, the white-haired old man did not hesitate. He struck with his palm. The blow brimmed with boundless majesty and threads of heavenly Tao will, morphing into a heaven-covering giant palm that pressed toward Myriad Flower's divine palace. The next moment, crack, crack, the sound echoed without end. The colossal palm met little resistance. The 9 wondrous celestial flowers array fractured layer by layer, turning into shards of golden light that vanished into the void. Yet the heaven-covering hand did not slow, continuing to suppress the people of Myriad Flower's divine palace. Without the array's protection, the grievously injured experts felt utter powerlessness before this terrifying palm. It was like facing the heavenly Tao itself. Hua Xian's mind flashed to a white-robed figure. Resolve ignited in her eyes. Boom! A thunderous roar, and every structure within Myriad Flower's divine palace turned to dust. Hidden onlookers assumed none could survive. The ancient Myriad Flower's divine palace was finished. But the white-haired old man suddenly frowned. When the smoke cleared, a golden lotus platform radiated endless divine splendor, forming a vast light shield that enveloped every disciple of Myriad Flower's divine palace. Though the old man's palm had obliterated the palace buildings, not a single disciple had perished. Seeing the ruined structures, sorrow flickered across Hua Xian's eyes. Yet upon finding everyone safe, her longing for that white-robed figure only deepened. Hidden observing experts were startled. None had expected Hua Xian to possess such a divine treasure. Qin Haoyan's pupils shrank at the golden lotus platform exuding boundless might, and he cried with greed. Humph. So Xingchen was willing to gift you this Lu Jin Lotus platform. Useless. At a mortal emperor realm. How long can you endure? Beside him, the white-haired old man finally spoke, his voice carrying supreme majesty. Tian'er, is this the congenital divine treasure of that god? The Lu Jin Lotus platform you spoke of? Qin Haoyan immediately answered with deference. Yes, great-grandfather, this Lu Jin Lotus platform is indeed that god's congenital divine treasure. Hearing this, a sharp gleam flashed in the old man's eyes. With a flip of his hand, a red beam appeared. A red long blade, radiating terrifying killing intent, its edge pulsing with crimson cold light. The old man's aura transformed. A fearsome bloodthirst erupted from within him. Like a demon god who had waded through mountains of corpses, he made scalps tingle and bodies tremble. Seeing this, the disciples of Myriad Flowers' divine palace paled. Hua Shuyan frantically channeled immortal spiritual power into the Lu Jin Lotus platform. The next instant, a terrifying blade flash swept out, turning into an endless sea of blood that carried despairing slaughter toward the Lu Jin Lotus platform. With a blade light passed, space cracked layer upon layer, reaping all life. Simultaneously, red light flashed in the old man's eyes as he declared, "One blade to extinguish gods." Meanwhile, news that the hidden Qin family would annihilate Myriad Flowers' divine palace spread rapidly from the vicinity towards Central Emperor Province. Factions near Myriad Flowers' divine palace, upon hearing the shocking news, tore through the sky toward the palace at top speed. Chapter 131. Hua Shuyan is seriously injured. The power of the hiding god talisman. At this moment, many forces very close to the Myriad Flowers' divine palace were rushing towards the Myriad Flowers' divine palace. The white-haired old man's terrifying strike that reaped all life had already bombarded the Lu Jin Lotus platform, and then a flash of red light flashed in his hand and disappeared. The white-haired old man was confident that within the divine wilderness, even with the help of divine treasures, no one could block his strike. This was unparalleled confidence in his own strength. Sure enough, the next moment, a huge burst of energy erupted, bringing up endless smoke and dust, and a crisp cracking sound rang out from within, causing countless people's expressions to change drastically. When the smoke cleared, the Lu Jin Lotus platform had completely lost its divine might and fell into Hua Shuyan's hands. And at this moment, Hua Shuyan was standing there, swaying. Her face was pale, and blood was constantly spurting from her mouth, mixed with fragments of internal organs. Obviously, Hua Shuyan had absorbed most of the damage from the strike just now. Otherwise, the many disciples behind her, as well as the 3 Emperor Realm powerhouses and several immortal emperors, would not have only suffered minor injuries. Seeing Hua Shuyan swaying and almost unable to stand, Lu Ruosu flashed to Hua Shuyan's side and supported her. She immediately opened the jade bottle in her hand, and a rich aura of life emanated from it. It was the life divine spring that Xingchen had given to Hua Shuyan, which could not only prolong life, but also heal serious injuries. However, as soon as she took it, Hua Shuyan spat out another large mouthful of blood, and her face became even paler. The Myriad Flowers' divine palace disciples behind her all had tears in their eyes as they looked at Hua Shuyan. If the palace master hadn't been protecting them, she wouldn't have suffered such injuries. At this moment, all the disciples looked up at the Qin family's direction, their faces full of anger and unwillingness. They regretted not having the strength to prevent their palace master, who had always loved them, from suffering such serious injuries. Qin Haoyan, who was standing in the Void Realm, saw Hua Shuyan's appearance. A hint of smugness flashed across the corner of his mouth, and the resentment in his heart seemed to have disappeared for the most part. And at this moment, Hua Shuyan, who had already fallen into Lu Ruosu's arms, although she had stopped vomiting blood, her meridians in her body were completely broken, and countless tiny cracks appeared in her physical body. If Lu Ruosu hadn't been constantly pouring the life divine spring into Hua Shuyan's mouth, Hua Shuyan would have fainted long ago. The powerhouses observing in the dark also couldn't help but widen their eyes, their faces full of shock. They really didn't expect that the Heavenly Emperor realm was so powerful. It actually broke open the divine light of the natal divine treasure, Lu Jin Lotus platform, with one strike. In fact, these powerhouses didn't know at all that it wasn't that the Lu Jin Lotus platform was not strong, but that the gap between Hua Shuyan and the white-haired old man was too great. The terrifying backlash alone was not something that ordinary immortal emperor powerhouses could withstand. At this moment, Hua Shuyan, lying in Lu Ruosu's arms, was extremely pale, without any strength in her body. Although the cracks in her entire physical body had stopped, she could not move violently. Although her life was not in danger for the time being, After a long time, I'm afraid. Seeing this scene, the Myriad Flowers' divine palace disciples finally couldn't stop their tears from flowing. Endless sorrow spread among all the disciples. At this moment, a white-robed figure seemed to appear in front of Hua Xuan. That figure was tall and stalwart, exuding an unparalleled and detached temperament. Smiling at her, Hua Xuan looked at this figure. Her eyes couldn't help but become moist, and she murmured to herself, "I wonder if you will be sad when you hear the news of Snow Smoke's death." Scenes of her experience with that figure flashed through her mind, recalling the embarrassed look of that figure when he sent her the azure frostflower bracelet at the Tianbao Tower auction. Recalling the nervous look of that figure when she bravely expressed her feelings in the alchemy room, and that figure hugged her. Hua Xuan's originally pale face actually flushed slightly. Suddenly, Hua Xuan seemed to have thought of something. Regardless of her physical body that could crack at any time, a black jade talisman, exuding an ancient aura, appeared in Hua Xuan's hand. Seeing that Hua Xuan still took out a talisman at this time, a hint of disdain appeared on the corner of Qin Haoyan's mouth. However, the next moment, before Qin Haoyan could speak, Hua Xuan had already struggled to input a strand of immortal spiritual qi into the black jade talisman and sacrificed it. Suddenly, the black jade talisman emitted endless immortal radiance, and a figure walked out from the immortal radiance. That figure was dressed in white like snow, gentle as jade. Although one could not see his appearance clearly, it gave people a kind of domineering and unparalleled aura that shocked the universe. Seeing the figure walking out of the endless immortal radiance, amazing light flickered in Hua Xuyan's beautiful eyes. Although she couldn't see his face clearly, Hua Xuyan was 100% sure that this white-robed figure was the person she was thinking of in her heart. And when that figure bathed in endless divine light saw the seriously injured Hua Xuyan, suddenly, a terrifying aura surged out from that figure, carrying an aura of destroying all things, giving everyone the urge to prostrate themselves and kneel. That figure waved his hand, and a green divine light, exuding a rich life force, turned into a stream of light and entered Hua Xuyan's body. The constantly cracking physical body of Hua Xuyan stopped breaking, and some small meridians in her body also began to slowly repair. Although they were not completely restored, at least Hua Xuyan's injuries would not continue to deteriorate. After doing all this, that figure looked in the direction of the Qin family and pointed out a finger directly without any hesitation. This finger was like destroying the heavens and extinguishing the earth, obliterating the heavens. At this moment, the powerhouses who had been secretly observing around, seeing the terrifying finger of this figure, recalled the equally terrifying finger of the white-haired old man just now, which was simply worlds apart and not on the same level. Only now did they realize how ridiculous the white-haired old man's finger was in front of this figure. As this terrifying finger continued to fall, the Qin family's 10 immortal emperor powerhouses instantly turned into blood mist, and those emperor realm powerhouses also desperately resisted with horrified expressions. However, it was of no use at all. The Qin family's 10 emperor realm powerhouses also instantly turned into blood mist, and even their immortal infant bodies were turned into nothingness. And the white-haired old man, feeling this terrifying finger, let out an earth-shattering roar, as if venting his unwillingness. A divine knife, exuding a red light, appeared in his hand and blocked it in front of his chest. However, the next moment, the white-haired old man had a look of shock on his face and let out an unwilling roar. "Ancient Emperor Realm? Who are you?" "This emperor is the old ancestor of the hidden Qin family. Are you not afraid of the hidden Qin family's ancient Emperor Realm old ancestor's revenge?" That figure seemed not to have heard it. The divine knife in the white-haired old man's hand shattered inch by inch, and the white-haired old man stood there stiffly, as if he had lost his soul. On the contrary, Qin Haoyan, who was standing at the front, was fine, as if that figure deliberately left Qin Haoyan behind. With this, the entire area around the Myriad Flowers' divine palace instantly exploded, and countless figures hidden in the dark let out exclamations. "This white-robed figure is so strong. I didn't expect the Myriad Flowers' divine palace to have such a trump card." And the white-robed figure bathed in endless divine light glanced at Qin Haoyan, who was standing there blankly. Qin Haoyan suddenly spat out several mouthfuls of essence blood, and his realm began to decline rapidly. Strands of gray mysterious power surrounded Qin Haoyan, as if trying to automatically repair the injuries in Qin Haoyan's body, but it was of no use. That mysterious power was Qin Haoyan's special Underworld King power of the undying Underworld King body. Feeling the realm in his body constantly declining, Qin Haoyan seemed to have come back to his senses. Looking at the old man beside him, his eyes shrank, his face full of horror, and he kept screaming. Who are you? What did you do? This holy sun's cultivation, this holy sun's realm. However, that white-robed figure ignored Qin Haoyan and flashed to the front of the white-haired old man. At this moment, the white-haired old man's eyes were wide open, his face full of shock and unwillingness. With a gentle wave of the white-robed figure, the white-haired old man instantly turned into countless fragments and scattered all over the ground. Only at this moment did the white-robed figure bathed in endless divine light turn around and glance at Hua Xuan, and the figure slowly turned into golden light spots and disappeared. And that black jade talisman exuding an ancient aura turned into powder at this moment, scattered in the void realm. The scene changes inside the Tianxia Tower. Xingchen also received the news from Yuan Long at this moment, and his murderous intent suddenly appeared. That terrifying murderous intent actually made Yuan Long tremble all over, unable to raise a trace of resistance, just like a lamb to be slaughtered. The next moment, Xingchen put on the sky, stealing sun switching, and his figure disappeared. Xingchen's extremely cold voice was left in the air. Hidden Qin family, you have such great courage. This emperor did not go to you, but you dared to come and find this emperor's woman's trouble. It seems that there is no need for you to exist. Chapter 132 Xingchen appears, startling killing intent. At this moment, seeing the black jade talisman turned into powder, everyone woke up as if they had been dreaming. A scream rang out. It was Qin Haoyan, who discovered that he had lost all his cultivation and turned into a mortal, roaring miserably as if he had gone mad. Who would have thought that Qin Haoyan, who was still high above just now, would become a mortal without any cultivation in the next moment? Who could bear this kind of contrast? Just now, he was a respected immortal emperor powerhouse, but now he has become a mortal like an ant. At this time, Hua Xuan also looked pale. Although her physical body was no longer breaking, her physical body injuries were too severe. It was already a miracle for an immortal emperor realm cultivator to survive in the hands of a heavenly emperor powerhouse. Looking at the myriad flowers divine palace that had been razed to the ground, and then looking at her current appearance, Hua Xuan smiled miserably. Fortunately, none of the people in the myriad flowers divine palace were injured. This may be her only comfort now. Those forces hidden around, looking at the Lujin lotus platform in Hua Xuyan's hand, revealed greed in their eyes. They had all heard that this was a treasure of a true god. Without this treasure, how could Hua Xuyan's immortal emperor cultivation be able to withstand the terrifying blade of a heavenly emperor powerhouse? She would have turned into ashes long ago. However, seeing the three great emperor powerhouses and several immortal emperor powerhouses watching covetously, these forces instantly dispelled the greed in their eyes. Although the treasure is good, one must have the life to use it. Looking at Hua Xuyan's pale face, Qin Haoyan regained his senses. A look of madness appeared on his face, laughed loudly, and said to Hua Xuan, "Ha ha ha, Hua Xuan, this holy sun has lost all cultivation, and you are not much better. You better release this holy sun now. Otherwise the Qin family will not let the myriad flowers divine palace off. You shouldn't have that kind of trump card anymore." However, the Qin family's heavenly emperor realm powerhouses are not just great-grandfather alone. If you don't release this holy sun, it won't just be one heavenly emperor powerhouse. Who comes next time? Hua Xuyan, you better be sensible and quickly release this holy sun. If this holy sun does not return to the Qin family within half a day, the Qin family army will definitely arrive, and all the people in the myriad flowers divine palace will be wiped out. Hearing Qin Haoyan's words, Hua Xuyan frowned slightly. Just as she was about to speak, a terrifying aura descended, carrying a shocking, killing intent. An extremely cold voice came. There is no need for the Qin family to come. This emperor will personally visit the Qin family later to see if the Qin family is really that powerful. Feeling this shocking, killing intent, everyone couldn't help but tremble and desperately resisted this killing intent. This voice was exactly what Xingchen had made, but it had changed because of the sky-stealing sun switching. Because he didn't know the location of the myriad flowers divine palace, Xingchen grabbed an immortal emperor powerhouse at random, asked about the specific location of the myriad flowers divine palace, and then took a step, as if crossing layers of space, surrounded by the sun and moon, and directly arrived above the myriad flowers divine palace. It was precisely the Pangu stepping heaven steps rewarded by the system. Its speed was so fast that it ignored any distance, any formation, and the distance between heaven and earth, arriving in one step. Looking at the myriad flowers divine palace below that was almost razed to the ground, Xingchen's heart trembled, and a sweep of his divine sense discovered the seriously injured Hua Xuan. Although he gave Hua Xuyan a hiding god talisman, he couldn't sense when the hiding god talisman was activated. Moreover, The hiding god talisman only contained one of his attacks and only retained his most superficial consciousness, just to distinguish between friend and foe. Hearing Qin Haoyan's words just now and seeing the seriously injured Hua Shuyan, a terrifying killing intent descended, which was emitted by Xingchen. The sudden appearance of shocking killing intent and extremely cold words shocked the hidden forces around, and they couldn't help but secretly said, "Who is this person? What courage, daring to challenge the Qin family's prestige alone?" In the next moment, a white-robed figure emitting a dazzling divine light stepped from the void realm step by step, surrounded by the sun and moon, with great Tao law following him. The terrifying aura continued to oppress from all directions, and the surrounding heavenly Tao law actually made way for him, as if a god worshipped by all immortals, walking step by step towards Hua Xian's direction with unparalleled grace. Looking at this figure exuding a terrifying aura, the entire Myriad Flowers divine palace was silent, and even breathing seemed to stop. Seeing this scene, the Myriad Flowers divine palace powerhouses, feeling this terrifying aura, also changed their expressions drastically and immediately made a defensive posture, flashing in front of Hua Xian. However, that figure still did not stop and actually passed through the crowd's defense and came to Hua Xian, looking at Hua Xian with a pale face and broken physical body. The shocking killing intent suddenly dissipated, as if afraid that this terrifying killing intent would cause further harm to Hua Xian. The divine light around him disappeared, and a white-robed figure appeared in front of everyone. This figure made Hua Xian's eyes light up, but when she discovered that the figure wearing a mask was not the person she was thinking of, her eyes instantly dimmed. Looking at Hua Xian in front of him, Xingchen directly took out the 9 Revolutions Emperor pill rewarded by the system from the system space. A heavenly Tao Grey Divine pill that could bring the dead back to life, and also the only medicinal pill that Xingchen obtained the earliest that could bring the dead back to life. In the next moment, an extremely rich medicinal pill fragrance emanated from the 9 Revolutions Emperor pill, and the surrounding people immediately recovered from their old injuries just by smelling it. Qin Haoyan, who was on the side, smelled this medicinal pill fragrance and discovered that the cultivation in his physical body had actually begun to slowly recover. A look of excitement appeared on his face, and he said loudly, "Quick, give this medicinal pill to this holy son, and this holy son will not hold you accountable for offending the Qin family just now." At this time, Qin Haoyan's eyes were full of desire. The surrounding people looked at Qin Haoyan as if they were looking at an idiot. Could it be that his intelligence also decreased along with his cultivation level? According to what this figure said just now, it was obvious that he was here to cause trouble for the Qin family. This Qin Haoyan was still foolishly asking for medicinal pills. Moreover, he still had a condescending posture. It seems that rumors should not be easily believed. What Qin family holy son with unparalleled talent and potential to become a god? Now it seems that he is unworthy of his reputation. As if he didn't hear Qin Haoyan's words, Xingchen looked at Hua Xian and said softly, "Take this medicinal pill, and your injuries will be restored in a moment." When Hua Xian heard this voice, she felt that it was even less like the person in her heart, and the look in her eyes became even dimmer. Seeing that Hua Xian didn't respond, and her eyes were full of dimness, how could Xingchen not know what this silly woman was thinking? He slowly squatted down, approached Hua Xian, and directly and domineeringly put the 9 Revolutions Emperor pill into Hua Xian's mouth in the surprised eyes of everyone and Hua Xian. Chapter 133, Overbearing Arrival. Qin Haoyan dies. At this moment, every member of the various powers stared in disbelief at the scene before them. They saw Hua Xian bathe in streaks of golden light, her body recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The major forces of Central Emperor Province who had rushed over were shaken to the core. Such grievous wounds, meridians shattered and flesh torn apart, had actually healed completely in mere moments. Who exactly was this white-robed, masked man to possess such a divine pill? One after another, they turned to look at Xingchen. That single glance drew gasps of shock from the gathered powers. Teach, this man looks so familiar. He's that mysterious figure from Tianxia Tower. Exactly, it must be the Lord of the Underworld Tower. Every powerhouse of Tianxia Tower kneels to him. Everyone says Tianxia Tower has a mysterious background, but it's still leagues behind the hidden Qin family. Yet he dares challenge them alone. Listening to the surrounding chatter, Xingchen showed no reaction. Instead, he gazed tenderly at Hua Xian and, under the crowd's astonished eyes, gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. And Hua Xian actually blushed deeply, making no move to avoid his touch. That stunned not only the onlookers from the great powers, but even the disciples of Myriad Flowers' divine palace. Every disciple in the palace knew who their palace mistress favored. With her temperament, any man who even drew close would repel her, let alone wipe her tears. Now she not only allowed it, but wore a bashful look mixed with the pout of someone wronged. There was no doubt who this masked man was. Only because Xingchen wore a mask did none of them speak aloud. Only after seeing that Hua Xuyan had fully recovered did Xingchen exhale in relief. Though he trusted the system implicitly, a trace of tension had still lingered. He helped the blushing Hua Xuyan to her feet, glanced at the flattened myriad flowers divine palace, frowned slightly, then lifted Qin Haoyan beside him and said to her, "Come, let's claim our revenge." Hearing those words, Hua Xuyan turned anxious and tried to speak, but Xingchen had already seized Qin Haoyan and vanished toward the hidden Qin family's domain. Seeing this, Hua Xuyan hurried after him, thinking to herself, "This scoundrel, since you're fearless, then so am I. As long as I can be with you, I'd gladly die." Every power present was aghast. The Lord of the Underworld Tower actually dared storm the hidden Qin family alone. How confident must he be? Clearly, a great upheaval was about to rock divine wilderness. Tianxia Tower sought to rise on the tide. Anyone capable of becoming Lord of the Underworld Tower couldn't be a fool. To march alone into the Qin family meant he surely had backing. The major forces likewise turned into streaks of light, chasing toward the Qin estate. No one wanted to miss such a sensational act. Among them was the veiled, bewitching Meng Yuyu, her eyes full of mockery as she watched Xingchen disappear. Haha, how amusing, utterly overestimating himself, daring to challenge the Qin family's majesty alone. He simply doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How could the Qin family be provoked by such an ant? The moment her words fell, Meng Yuyu's figure vanished as well. Scene shift. Inside the Qin family's main hall, Qin Chunqiu sat upon the principal seat, frowning slightly as he questioned a great emperor expert below him. Tian'er still hasn't returned? With his great uncle accompanying him, dealing with a mere myriad flowers divine palace should have been quick. Hearing the question, the great emperor expert answered, reporting to the clan chief, "They should be back soon. With a heavenly emperor realm old ancestor escorting him, myriad flowers divine palace is nothing to fear." The instant those words left his mouth, Elderly stumbled in, terror on his face, rolling and crawling into the hall while shouting, "Clan chief, terrible news. Something huge has happened." At the sight, Qin Chunqiu and the great emperor expert both frowned. Qin Chunqiu spoke with majestic authority. "Elderly, I have told you that as a Qin family elder you must stay calm. Have you forgotten my words?" Yet Elderly seemed not to hear him, crying out in horror. "Clan chief, calamity. Just moments ago in the ancestral shrine, the soul tablets of the old ancestor, 10 great emperor experts, and 10 immortal emperor experts all shattered to dust." Upon hearing this, the great emperor expert bellowed in fury. "Insolence! Were you not a Qin family elder, I would slap you to death this instant. Withdraw at once. Speak no such nonsense." Qin Chunqiu, seated in the main chair, was likewise livid. Elder Li's audacity was growing. He dared to spout such nonsense. Yet Elderly paid no heed to the great emperor's rebuke. He dropped to his knees and addressed Qin Chunqiu. "Clan chief, how could this old man speak rashly of something so grave? Of the experts who accompanied the old ancestors to the myriad flowers divine palace, apart from a saint, every soul tablet has shattered to dust." Seeing Elderly kneeling in terror, Qin Chunqiu shot to his feet. "Impossible. Great uncle is a heavenly emperor. Even among the divine wilderness factions, who could match him? Even if some divine realm spark survives, once they know it's the hidden Qin family, they wouldn't dare such cruelty, let alone the powerless myriad flowers divine palace." At that moment the vanished great emperor reappeared, trembling, face ashen. He met Qin Chunqiu's eyes, said nothing, and simply knelt. The sight made Qin Chunqiu's heart lurch. Terrifying pressure rolled off him as he opened his mouth. A thunderous boom rocked the entire hidden Qin family. A calm voice, commanding enough to shake the world, declared, "I've heard the Qin family's saint proclaim that the clan can crush the divine wilderness without rival. Today, this emperor has come to test that claim. Qin, come greet your better." The words ignited Qin Chunqiu's fury. Bloodlust flashed in his eyes. "How dare you run wild in my Qin lands? Whoever you are, this emperor will hurl your soul into the endless blood sea to suffer forever." The moment the threat left his lips, his form melted into the void and vanished. "Who dares rampage through the Qin? Who gave you the gall?" A majestic voice rang out, thick with the aura of supremacy. Space rippled like water, and Qin Chunqiu, master of the Qin family, stepped forth. Now that Qin Chunqiu had appeared, the crippled Qin Haoyan saw a last ray of hope. "Father, save me. Father." Only then did Xingchen realize the kneeling man was his own son, his cultivation utterly destroyed. His pupils shrank. He glared at the masked man. Release Tian'er, or whoever you serve. This emperor will make you pay. Xingchen answered coolly. So you're the Qin master? This emperor needs no lessons in conduct from you. Xingchen's eyes narrowed. He laughed in outrage. How long since anyone dared speak to him thus? Ignoring him, Xingchen turned to Qin Haoyan. No, I didn't kill you outright. I want you to taste despair at the very moment hope seems brightest. Murderous intent flared as he recalled Hua Xuyan's wounds and her grievous eyes. Leaning to Qin Haoyan's ear, he whispered, In Avicii hell I spared you once. You dared touch my woman, so now I'll cast you into true Avicii, never to escape. The instant the words fell, Qin Haoyan's eyes bulged in disbelief. No, impossible. A heaven-shaking scream tore from him as his body cracked apart. Xingchen had shattered him with a single palm. None had foreseen the scene. Hidden onlookers from every power felt their hair stand on end, cold sweat drenching them. Such nerve, such ruthless, domineering force. The temperature plummeted. Dread rose from the depths of every heart. A demonic roar erupted. This emperor will flay you alive, exterminate your clan, slaughter your wives and daughters, bind their souls to the hell-blood sea till they break, then bury them beneath the yellow springs, never to be reborn. As the curse rang out, the firmament turned blood-red as though the heavenly Tao itself wept. A colossal crimson claw tore across the sky, bearing endless sanguine might as it reached for Xingchen. Chapter 134. The Shock of the Powers, the Secret of the Ancient Realm. At this moment, as he watched the blood-colored claw that could suppress the heavens itself come straight at him, Xingchen's face remained calm, devoid of the slightest panic. Hua Xuyan, however, paled at the sight of the terrifying claw. She could feel the overwhelming pressure it carried. She instantly flashed in front of Xingchen, raising the Lu Jin Lotus platform to shield him. Seeing Hua Xuyan suddenly appear, Xingchen gave a helpless smile, his eyes full of gratitude. He produced 2 hiding god talismans and pressed them into her hand, saying, In a crisis, crush these. Any danger can be quelled. Go back, a mere Qin family. This emperor will wipe it out with a slap. After I've destroyed the Qin family, I still have a gift for you. Feeling the dreadful pressure behind him, Xingchen ignored it completely. Without even turning his head, he casually threw a punch. A golden phantom descended, as though able to suppress the heavens. The terrifying fist light turned into a 9-colored ribbon that rushed toward the crimson claw. A thunderous boom rang out. Space shattered layer by layer. The clash between Xingchen and Qin Chuanqiu's moves sent a vast wave of energy sweeping in all directions, kicking up endless dust. When the dust settled, Xingchen stood in place as though nothing had happened, and he spoke. Yuan Long, Qin Feng, guard your sister-in-law. If anyone shows ill intent, kill them outright. The instant his words fell, 12 great emperor experts appeared beside Hua Xuyan, Long Yi, Feng Yi, and the rest who had just broken through in Tianxia Tower. At this moment, the many surrounding factions, including the hidden world forces, gasped when they saw the 2 black jade talismans exuding an ancient aura that Xingchen had produced. They had already learned that these very items had wiped out the Qin family's heavenly emperor old ancestor, 10 great emperors, and 10 immortal emperors. They never imagined they were given by this mysterious master of Tianxia Tower, nor that Tianxia Tower had suddenly produced 12 great emperor experts. Who could say whether even more powerful beings still lurked within? An entity able to produce such terrifying talismans was not someone the Divine Wilderness faction could offend lightly. This realization instantly sobered up the many Divine Wilderness powers that had planned to secretly seize Hua Xuyan to curry favor with the Qin family. No one dared to harbor such thoughts any longer. When Hua Xuyan heard Xingchen's words, her pretty face flushed crimson. Knowing her strength would only hold him back here, she gazed at him with deep affection and softly whispered, You be careful. Seeing her flushed cheeks, Xingchen smiled faintly and said, Rest assured, Yuan Long, Qin Feng, and the others are this emperor's sworn brothers and sisters. You may trust them as you trust me. Hua Xuyan nodded, understanding that Xingchen was telling her Yuan Long, Qin Feng, and the rest were the most trustworthy, never to stab her in the back. Yuan Long, Qin Feng, and the others, hearing Xingchen's words, were likewise moved. They bowed and escorted Hua Xuyan back toward the myriad flowers' divine palace disciples. As for Qin Chuanqiu, he too stood there calmly, yet his heart shook. The right hand behind his back trembled slightly. Clearly he had been at a disadvantage in that earlier exchange. Looking at Xingchen, He had never imagined that the masked figure before him was also a heavenly emperor expert. Could Tianxia Tower also be a spark left by a divine realm power? Qin Chuanxiu could only wonder inwardly. Yet when he recalled the tragic death of his most beloved son, boundless killing intent rose in his heart. He addressed Yi Xingchen. So you're a heavenly emperor. That explains your arrogance. Even if you are, don't dream of leaving the Qin family's territory alive. The debt of my son's death must be paid in blood. Hearing Qin Chuanxiu's words, the many hidden world forces hiding nearby were shocked. The Lord of Tianxia Tower was actually that powerful. Some divine wilderness experts, however, wore puzzled expressions. They had no idea what heavenly emperor realm meant. At this point, a white-haired powerhouse from the heavenly Dao sect, seeing the bewilderment on many faces, spoke up. No need for confusion. The great era has arrived. You would have learned sooner or later. Above the divine wilderness lies the divine realm, a higher plane. It has always been controlled by the hidden world forces, though a few divine wilderness powers are aware of it. Hearing the heavenly Dao sect experts' words, the divine wilderness factions were stunned. One of them immediately asked, does that mean the top experts of the immortal demon war vanished from the divine wilderness continent because they went to the divine realm? Hearing this, the heavenly Dao sect expert merely smiled and continued. You're unfamiliar with the heavenly emperor realm because you don't know the true hierarchy. Above the great emperor realm lie many further levels. They are, in order, the heavenly emperor realm, ancient emperor realm, and ancestor emperor realm. In ancient times, the ancestor emperor realm was known as the void god realm, the so-called gods of the divine wilderness. As for realms beyond, if you ever enter the divine realm, you will naturally learn. After hearing the heavenly Dao sect expert, another divine wilderness powerhouse asked, so there's a way to enter the divine realm from the divine wilderness continent. Please enlighten us, senior. Hearing this question, countless eyes turned toward the white-haired heavenly Dao sect expert, but he merely shook his head and replied, the time is not right. It cannot be spoken. When the great era of the divine wilderness arrives and the world changes, the opportune moment will reveal itself. With those words, the heavenly Dao sect expert looked toward the Qin family and said no more. Meanwhile, Yi Xingchen remained calm when he heard Qin Chuanxiu's declaration. Gazing at the enraged patriarch, he said flatly, with your meager strength, I fear you can't. Today I came to obliterate your Qin family, so every power in the divine wilderness will know. Tianxia Tower is not to be provoked, and the myriad flowers divine palace even less so. For daring to lay hands on this emperor's woman and nearly costing her life, the Qin family deserves extermination. Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Qin Chuanxiu laughed in fury. Ha, how ridiculous! You dream of wiping out my clan? Today I'll kill you first, then destroy the myriad flowers divine palace, and make you watch as Hua Shuyan is buried with my son. Die for me, blood sea devours the heavens. The instant the words left his mouth, a terrifying energy erupted. The hell blood sea manifested behind him, blotting out the sun and sky, filled with endless mournful wails and churning blood. The dreadful aura sent chills down the spines of the onlookers. As they stared at the blood sea vortex overhead, they felt as though their very souls might be torn out. The boundless blood sea transformed into a 1,000-foot tidal wave that surged toward Yi Xingchen. Watching the 1,000-foot crimson wave, Yi Xingchen shook his head slightly. Looking at the furious Qin Chuanxiu, he spoke calmly. For a clan leader, you truly know nothing of this emperor's strength. The moment his words fell, Yi Xingchen struck out with his palm, and dread descended. Everyone present felt as insignificant as ants before the scene unfolding before them. P.S. Thank you all for your support. Jasmine has read every comment and will keep releasing chapters. Thank you. Chapter 135, The Terror of the Universe, All Heaven's Palm, Divine Edict. At this moment, facing the surging sea of blood rolling toward him, Yi Xingchen simply raised his hand and struck out with a palm. In the next instant, a colossal palm appeared out of thin air, radiating boundless heavenly Dao majesty. Before this palm, the vast sea of blood seemed as insignificant as an ant before a giant. It was directly crushed by the massive hand, reduced to nothingness. Qin Chuanxiu coughed up a mouthful of blood, his eyes wide with disbelief as he roared. Impossible! Who are you? How could you possibly be this strong? But Yi Xingchen remained calm and said, This emperor told you. You know nothing of true power. As his words fell, the palm exuding endless divine might turned toward Qin Chuanxiu and the entire Qin family, slamming down. At the sight of this terrifying giant palm, Qin Chuanxiu, blood at the corner of his mouth, channeled all of his immortal spiritual power, striking the heaven and earth-sized palm again and again. It was useless. watching the Qin family's guardian grand formation flash once with golden light before vanishing into nothingness. Qin Shunxiu finally felt fear and screamed, "Old ancestor, save me." Hearing him, Xingchen said calmly, "Save you? Today no one can." From a moment your Qin family raised a hand against the myriad flowers' divine palace, your clan's annihilation was sealed. As the terrifying palm drew ever closer, Qin Shunxiu let out a roar of unwillingness. "This emperor refuses. I won't accept it. Won't accept it." But the next instant, his voice cut off abruptly. A deafening boom shook the heavens and earth. Smoke and dust billowed everywhere. A wretched figure shot out from the deepest part of the Qin estate, wrapped in murderous intent. An icy voice rang out. "Who dares run wild in the hidden Qin family? Such outrageous gall." The surrounding crowd, hearing almost the exact same line moments earlier, nearly burst into laughter. But when the smoke cleared and they saw what lay before them, everyone froze, jaws slack as if their chins had hit the floor. Where the hidden Qin family had stood was now a patch of absolute void. Everything had vanished. It was as though the Qin family had never existed. Qin Shunxiu was deader than dead. Only an old man suffused with ancient aura remained, hovering wretchedly in the void realm, trembling at the sight. He let out a heaven-shaking roar, tears of blood streaming from his eyes. All the major factions, hidden world forces included, instinctively turned to Xingchen, their gazes filled with dread, domineering, ruthless, utterly merciless. Hidden inside the Hahuan sect, Meng Yuyu's eyelids twitched nonstop, her eyes wide with terror. She suppressed every trace of her aura, terrified Xingchen might notice her. Gazing at that white-robed figure, she dared not even think. Slowly she lowered her head, a sliver of black light flashing deep in her eyes. Even Xingchen himself clicked his tongue at the scene. Honestly, he hadn't expected the system-rewarded universe all heaven's palm to possess such devastating might. No wonder the system called it overbearing, able to become heaven and earth itself, shatter all laws. Under this palm, all becomes void. Truly, the system had not deceived him. Now the old man of ancient aura turned to Xingchen, gnashing his teeth, killing intent surging as he spat word by word. "You've destroyed the Qin family's foundation and wiped out its disciples. This hatred will last 10,000 generations. Today, I shall exterminate your entire clan to comfort the heroic spirits of the Qin." The moment his voice fell, the hell-blood sea rose behind him, far vaster and darker than when Qin Shunxiu had summoned it. A titanic figure stepped out of the crimson sea, wreathed in red radiance and exuding terrifying pressure, like an ancient emperor descending. With a casual grasp, a huge red sword appeared, a single casual sweep. Heavenly Tao laws gave way, space shattered layer upon layer, displaying regal might. The next moment, the terrifying figure slashed out, the red blade carrying boundless power straight toward Xingchen. So mighty was this strike that it tore the void realm open, ripping a long gash from which countless black lightning bolts poured. Absorbed by the red greatsword, its crimson glow intensifying, its power doubling. All the surrounding powers trembled at the sight. Disciples of lower cultivation were pressed flat to the ground, unable to move. Hua Shuyan, witnessing the terrifying sword strike, was filled with worry, her face tight with anxiety. Xingchen, hands clasped behind his back, white robes flapping, watched the dreadful slash descending. The corner of his mouth curled in disdain as he said, "You dare draw a sword before this emperor? Who gave you such courage?" The instant his words sounded, Xingchen slowly lifted his right hand, formed a sword finger, and gently tapped toward the red greatsword. A torrential sword intent erupted, turning into 10,000 zhang radiance, as though a deity had descended. Indescribable, ineffable. Crack, crack, continuous snapping sounds rang out. When the two moves collided, no expected boom followed. The terrifying crimson greatsword instantly dissolved into a rain of red light and vanished into the void realm. The 10,000 zhang beam Xingchen had shot out did not pause. It speared straight at the emperor-like figure. In the next instant, the red shining silhouette fractured inch by inch, disintegrating into countless fragments. As for the Qin elder, his right hand turned directly to ash. His face paled, blood gushed from his mouth, and he stumbled backward, utterly shocked. Every major power present stared at the calmly standing Xingchen, white-robed, godlike, and could not help but cry out in their hearts. So strong. The Qin old ancestor finally steadied himself. Ignoring his injuries, he fixed his gaze on the still unruffled Xingchen, eyes filled with terror. "Who exactly are you?" Hearing the question, Xingchen replied evenly, "The man who will wipe out your Qin family. Today, your clan's name shall be erased from the divine wilderness." Seeing the terrifying killing intent flash in Xingchen's eyes, the Qin elder burst into mad laughter, hatred filling his face as he said, "Ha ha ha! This old man will drag you down to hell even if it costs my life. Do you truly think I can't touch you?" The instant his voice fell, a golden edict hovered before him. He slammed his left palm against his chest and spewed several mouthfuls of vital blood onto the decree. His face turned deathly pale at once. He dropped to his knees and shouted, "Unworthy descendant Qin, he beseeches the old ancestor of the Qin family. Descend and slay this foe. Unworthy descendant Qin, he beseeches the old ancestor of the Qin family. Descend and slay this foe." Only then did the surrounding powerhouses learn the Qin elder's name, Qin Yi. As his words ended, the golden edict released endless divine might. A hazy silhouette, exuding a domineering aura that looked down upon the world, stepped out of the decree. The Hidden World Forces experts nearby paled dramatically and cried out in shock. A divine edict. Chapter 136, overbearing and unrivaled. The Qin family exterminated. At this moment, hearing the exclamations of the Hidden World Forces powerhouse, everyone looked up at that golden figure who overlooked the world and dominated the heavens. "Who is calling me?" That golden figure took a step forward, its divine might vast and filled with endless majesty. Hearing that voice of endless majesty, Qin immediately shouted excitedly, "Unfilial descendant Qin, he pays respects to old ancestor." Hearing Qin Yi's voice, the golden figure looked at Qin, kneeling on the ground, and said, "What do you want from me?" "Old ancestor, this child exterminated the Qin family remaining in the divine wilderness continent. All members of the Qin family were killed by this child. Please, old ancestor, take action and kill this child." Hearing the golden figure's words, Qin immediately spoke, and that golden figure, hearing Qin Yi's words, seemed to fall into reminiscence. The next moment, as if remembering something, that figure emitted a boundless light, and endless majesty descended, pointing a finger towards Xingchen. "Daring to kill my clan, you deserve to be punished." Instantly, the void realm shook, accompanied by monstrous divine might. A simple finger strike actually burst forth with world-destroying power. A golden beam of light shot directly towards Xingchen. Countless forces were shocked by this. Was this the power of a heavenly god? It was so powerful that it seemed this finger could pierce through the divine wilderness continent. In the face of this terrifying power, countless forces felt insignificant. As if afraid of being affected, countless forces began to retreat. But Xingchen, looking at this terrifying finger, actually curled his lips slightly. An unparalleled, overbearing aura rose from within his body, setting off Xingchen at this moment, like a lord of the gods, and said, "A mere divine embodiment dares to speak wildly, trying to kill this emperor. This emperor is difficult for the heavens to bury and the earth to destroy. I will not fall into reincarnation for all eternity. I am destined to dominate this era and sweep across the heavens. A mere embodiment is nothing. This emperor will destroy it with a single finger." At this moment, the surrounding forces, looking at the incomparably domineering Xingchen, couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, "What a line, difficult for the heavens to bury and the earth to destroy. How domineering is this child?" And Hua Xian, who originally had a worried expression, now looked at that white-robed figure with excitement, and 100 kinds of tenderness rose in her heart. As soon as Xingchen's words fell, he also raised his sword-intent finger and pointed it towards the golden figure, saying lightly, "Overlord Heaven Sword Art 5th Move, Heavenly Tao Collapse." As soon as he finished speaking, terrifying sword intent erupted, transforming into 10,000 sword-intent sword beams. Instantly, space collapsed, the heavenly Tao order chains shattered inch by inch, and the surrounding vitality was extinguished, as if doomsday had arrived. Everyone looked at this scene with horror, their hearts pounding. Above the 9 heavens, the heavenly Tao laws descended, constantly repairing the collapsing space, seemingly sensing the power of this sword. Boom! The divine wilderness shook and stars shattered. The collision of the two moves, the huge energy impact, actually caused the entire divine wilderness to shake violently, the void realm to split, and shatter the stars in the sky. Impossible! I am a true heavenly god. Although the divine wilderness heavenly Tao suppresses me, and I cannot use my full strength, you, an ant, can never resist me. The next moment, a shocked voice rang out, actually coming from that golden figure. At this time, all the forces secretly watching have revealed their figures. The entire space is collapsing violently, making it impossible to hide. If they don't come out, they will be directly sucked into the space-time cracks and torn apart by the terrifying space-time turbulence. Hearing the golden figure's words, before the surrounding people could be shocked, an even more shocking voice rang out, causing many young disciples to feel their blood boil and become extremely excited. Humph. A mere embodiment dares to boast shamelessly. Even if your true body descends, this emperor will still slaughter you. Today, I will let you know how the ant you speak of slaughters a heavenly god. As soon as Xingchen finished speaking, he pointed out again, and even more terrifying energy swept directly towards the golden figure. Seeing Xingchen's finger, everyone around couldn't help but think of a voice in their hearts. This finger can slaughter a heavenly god. The golden figure seemed to have discovered the terror of this finger as well, and its whole body shone with golden light, and endless divine might erupted, trying to resist this finger. But Xingchen said with a mocking expression, "Since this emperor said today that I would slaughter a heavenly god, how can you resist it?" Sure enough, the next moment, with a loud boom, a scream rang out. Everyone was shocked to find that the golden figure, which had looked down on the world and was invincible, was actually shattering inch by inch, turning into starlight. A voice of incomparable anger and unwillingness came, daring to destroy the Dao lineage of the Qin family in the divine wilderness. The Qin family in the divine realm will not let you go. Upon entering the divine realm, your entire clan will be slaughtered. Hearing this unwilling voice, Xingchen pointed out, sending Qin Yi, who was already stunned, to reunite with the Qin family, and the Qin family of the divine wilderness was completely exterminated. Then he said, domineeringly, "This is what it means to exterminate a clan. Go back and tell the Qin family that when this emperor sets foot in the divine realm, it will be the day the Qin family is destroyed." At this moment, the golden starlight disappeared, and the divine decree, floating in the air, turned into powder and dissipated without a trace. At this moment, the whole place was silent and silent. The people of all the surrounding forces looked at Xingchen with fear in their eyes, and they couldn't help swallowing their saliva. No one thought that the always strong hidden Qin family would actually be exterminated by one person. This Lord of the Underworld Tower is simply too powerful. One person destroys a clan, crushing everything. Without any waves, even the divine decree was destroyed with a single finger. After today, the name of Tianxia Tower will resound throughout the divine wilderness. Meng Yu, who had been hiding in the Hahuan sect, trembled all over, lowered her head deeply, and did not dare to make any movements, for fear that Xingchen would discover her and directly destroy her. At this moment, Meng Yu kept thinking in her heart, "This person is so strong, definitely not someone I can match now." It seems that this Central Emperor province is not safe anymore. The Demon Realm Isle Channel in Southern Emperor State is also suppressed. The Western Buddhist State naturally restrains me. Now it seems that I can only go to Eastern State. After all, it is the most ancient state. Perhaps I can find a channel to enter the Demon Realm. Meng Yu lowered her head, her eyes constantly turning. She had already decided that as soon as Xingchen left, she would set off immediately to go to Eastern State. Looking at the fear in the eyes of the surrounding people, Xingchen ignored it. Believing in the lesson of the Qin family, no major force would dare to provoke the Myriad Flowers' divine palace again. He directly flashed to Hua Shui inside and said softly, "Let's go. I have a gift for you." As soon as he finished speaking, Xingchen took Hua Shuin's hand, took a step, and returned to the original location of the Myriad Flowers' divine palace sect. Looking at the Myriad Flowers' divine palace, which had long been razed to the ground, a trace of sadness flashed in Hua Shuin's eyes. After all, this was the place where she had lived for many years. Looking at the sadness in Hua Shuin's eyes, Xingchen held Hua Shuin's hand tightly and said, "Snow Smoke, there is no need to be sad. Although the Myriad Flowers' divine palace has been destroyed, the underground immortal veins are fine. It won't be long before it can be rebuilt." Hearing Xingchen's words, Hua Shuin couldn't help but throw herself into Xingchen's arms, tears streaming down her face. She said shyly, "Thank you. If it weren't for you, the Myriad Flowers' divine palace might really have been destroyed. Now that the disciples of the Myriad Flowers' divine palace are fine, it means that the Myriad Flowers' divine palace is still here." Looking at Hua Shuin crying sadly in his arms, Xingchen felt endless tenderness in his heart, gently wiped away the crystal tears from the corners of Hua Shuin's eyes, looked into Hua Shuin's eyes, and said softly, "There is no need to thank me between you and me." At this moment, being stared at gently by Xingchen, Hua Shuin lowered her head shyly, her beautiful face full of red clouds, and said softly, Looking at Hua Shuin's charming appearance, Xingchen couldn't help but reach out and lift Hua Shuin's chin, looking at the deep affection in Hua Shuin's eyes. Just as he was about to do something, Yuan Long, Qin Feng, and others brought the people from the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace back here. Seeing everyone coming back, Hua Xuyan pushed Yi Xingchen away instantly. Her face full of embarrassment, glared at Yi Xingchen fiercely, and turned away shyly, and everyone pretended not to see it. Lu Ruosu came to Hua Xuyan's side with a smile, and said, "Palace Master, what shall we do next?" Hearing Lu Ruosu's question, Hua Xuyan looked up at everyone in the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, with anticipation in her eyes, and said, "Starting tomorrow, gather the strength of the entire sect to rebuild the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace." As soon as Hua Xuyan finished speaking, many people from the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace shouted happily. And the news that the hidden Qin family was destroyed by the Lord of the Underworld Tower alone spread rapidly throughout the Divine Wilderness continent, as if it had wings. The mysterious Lord of the Underworld Tower has also become a topic of conversation for countless people after dinner, and his true identity has aroused the curiosity of countless people. Chapter 137. The Qin family of the Divine Realm reacts. System check-in. Right now, while news of the Qin family's annihilation was spreading like wildfire across the Divine Wilderness continent, the scene shifted. Within the boundless starry sky, dense, immortal spiritual qi had almost liquefied, filling the entire firmament. Several figures exuding terrifying auras sat cross-legged in the void, halos behind them endlessly spewing 10,000 zhong rays of light. One of them slowly opened his eyes. Instantly, stars glittered within them, resembling a vast universe brimming with boundless divine might. Brilliant divine light radiated around him, countless laws swirling. A fearsome aura burst from his body, carrying heaven-shaking killing intent as he spoke. "Someone dares to destroy my Qin family's Dao lineage in the Divine Wilderness. Unforgivable." This figure was precisely the old ancestor of the Divine Wilderness Qin family, whom Yi Xingchen had obliterated with a finger moments ago. His name, Qin Xian. From the dreadful aura he now released, he was actually a mighty heavenly god realm expert. Hearing Qin Xian's words, several other silhouettes emitting powerful auras opened their eyes. Among them, a white-haired old man sat in the void, the terrifying aura he released akin to the forefather of all gods, flickering in and out of existence as though between reality and illusion. Upon hearing Qin Xian, an ancient voice, seemingly crossing endless universes and flowing from the river of time, called out, "Qin Xian, what has stirred your anger?" Hearing the white-haired old man, Qin Xian immediately replied respectfully, "Old ancestor, just now my avatar left on the Divine Wilderness continent was destroyed. The Qin family's Dao lineage there was wiped out. That man even boasted that once he sets foot in the Divine Realm, our Qin family of the Divine Realm will meet its doom." At Qin Xian's words, dreadful pressure descended, and every figure erupted with heaven-shaking, killing intent. Yet the white-haired old man remained calm, slowly opening his eyes. An unfathomable power shot from them, as though peering through the river of time, while his ancient voice resounded. "The might of the Qin family is not to be challenged. The ancient God road is about to open. This man will surely enter the Divine Realm. Transmit his aura downward, and have our God Realm disciples eliminate him. A mere ant. No need for excessive attention. As head of the Qin family, do not be distracted by such trifles. Cultivate well in the ancestral starfield, and strive for an early breakthrough to the ancient God Realm." Hearing the white-haired old man, Qin Xian nodded slightly, respectfully assented, then shot out a divine light, and slowly closed his eyes. Scene shift within Tianxia Tower. Yi Xingchen watched Hua Xuyan lead the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace disciples away, and could only shake his head helplessly. Originally, he had wanted Hua Xuyan to stay at Tianxia Tower for a while. After all, rebuilding Myriad Flowers Divine Palace couldn't be done overnight. But Hua Xuyan had said that, as master of Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, she would share weal and woe with all disciples, rebuilding together, and that some areas could even be redesigned according to the disciples' ideas. Thus, she shyly declined Yi Xingchen's kindness. Yet this time she bravely told him that once Myriad Flowers Divine Palace was rebuilt, she would definitely come live at Tianxia Tower, then scampered off in a flash. Seeing her charming, bashful look, Yi Xingchen wondered if the silly girl had misunderstood his intentions. Still, he understood. As master of Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, if every disciple was working hard to rebuild while she ran off to Tianxia Tower, it truly would be inappropriate. He had wanted to accompany her, but was refused. If he went, all the palace disciples would crowd around the pair, leaving no heart for reconstruction. Fortunately, Hua Xuyan promised to come to Tianxia Tower daily for meals. Such a rare chance not to be taken advantage of. Watching her disappearing back, Yi Xingchen gave a wry smile, sat by a window, Even though night was approaching, Central Emperor City remained brightly lit and bustling. Suddenly the system's voice sounded beside his ear. Only then did he remember he hadn't checked in today. He'd nearly forgotten. Lucky the system reminded him. Without hesitation, he immediately said to the system, "System, start today's check-in." The moment his words fell, the system's sweet voice rang out. "Ding! Check-in in progress successful. Congratulations, host, on obtaining a 9 Revolutions Emperor pill, automatically stored in system space." Hearing that, Xingchen couldn't help but grin, thinking to himself, "The system's reliable, just gave my only 9 Revolutions golden pill to Hua Xuyin, and it immediately rewards me with another? Simply thoughtful." Only then did he realize how vital the 9 Revolutions golden pill was. Even as a heavenly Dao-grade alchemist aided by the Chaos Furnace, he still couldn't refine a Dao-grade divine pill capable of bringing the dead back to life. Had the system not granted another 9 Revolutions golden pill, annihilating the Qin family would have been pointless. If Hua Xuyin perished, he dared not imagine what he'd become. From that moment on, he finally grasped the true meaning of pulling up the weeds by the roots. Ding! Check-in in progress successful. Congratulations, host, on obtaining 10 Tiangong mystic treasures stored in system space. Hearing that, Xingchen couldn't contain his excitement. "System, I really love you. Just when I'm sleepy, you hand me a pillow." The instant his words faded, the system replied, "Ding! Host, no need for excitement. As the sole system across all realms, any check-in reward is possible. Please remain calm." Xingchen was rendered speechless, though inwardly he mused. With 10 Tiangong mystic treasures, rebuilding Myriad Flowers' divine palace will take but moments. Snow Smoke will surely be overjoyed. With that thought, he smiled faintly and decided to find Hua Xuyin right away. The sooner the palace was rebuilt, the sooner she could rest. Rebuilding Myriad Flowers' divine palace overnight would be enough to shock every divine wilderness faction. Tomorrow would surely bring another lively topic. At that, he vanished in a flash and arrived at the site of Myriad Flowers' divine palace. None of its disciples had rested, all still busily at work. Seeing this, Xingchen swept with his divine sense. A stunning figure appeared in his mind, the weary Hua Xuyin. Looking at her beautiful yet exhausted face, his heart ached. He flashed her aside. Startled by his sudden appearance, Hua Xuyin stared, then gazed at him gently and softly asked, "It's so late. Yi, why are you here?" Seeing her worn-out face, Xingchen answered with tender concern, "If I didn't come, certain people would never take a proper rest." The moment the words left his mouth, he lifted her into his arms, drawing a startled cry from her lips. All around, the palace disciples watched the pair with beaming smiles. His sudden action left Hua Xuyin blushing crimson. Seeing the surrounding smiles, she tried to wriggle free, but he held her fast. She could only lift her head and surrender and look at him, only to find a man gazing down at her with such tender pity that his warmth seemed capable of melting her. One glance, and she was defeated, burying her shy face against his chest. Cradling the beautiful, blushing woman, Xingchen leaned to her ear and whispered something. In the next instant, she excitedly sprang from his arms and exclaimed, "Why, you're telling the truth? You're not just trying to trick Snow Smoke into resting, are you?" Watching her excitement, Xingchen smiled and solemnly said, "If you behave and get some rest, this emperor promises you it will be done." At his words, Hua Xuyin leapt for joy. What followed left every Myriad Flowers' divine palace disciple dumbstruck. None had imagined their palace master could show such a side. Chapter 138, Creating a Miracle, the Rebirth of Myriad Flowers' Divine Palace. At this moment, every disciple of Myriad Flowers' Divine Palace stood rooted, staring in shock at the scene before them. Hua Xuyin, her face flushed with excitement, no longer cared about the surrounding gazes and threw herself directly into Xingchen's arms. Yet what truly stunned the onlookers was what followed. Hua Xuyin, like any ordinary woman, spoke to her husband in a coquettish tone, leaving every member of Myriad Flowers' divine palace dumbstruck. Let Snow Smoke take a look, all right? Please." Watching the enchanting woman in his arms, Xingchen gave a helpless smile. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't resist Hua Xuyin's endless charms. With a resigned sigh, he swept his divine sense, and, finding no one hiding within 10,000 li, finally spoke. "All right, this emperor knows that unless Myriad Flowers' divine palace is rebuilt, you'll never sleep soundly." With a casual wave, Xingchen produced a palm-sized, dark gold Tiangong mystic treasure that shimmered like flawless jade and hovered before Hua Xuyin. Gently, he said, "This is an ancient Tiangong mystic treasure. Infuse it with immortal spiritual power, Choose any location, and it will erect a magnificent structure rivaling a celestial weapon in quality. You may even name the building yourself. Tell me, where shall it stand? This emperor will let smoke witness a true miracle. Xingchen finished with a smile fixed on Hua Xuan. The surrounding crowd, hearing his words, gasped. Such a divine object actually existed. Gazing at the glowing treasure, Hua Xuan lifted her eyes to Xingchen's smiling face, love brimming within. She pointed to the very center and softly replied, "There, the center, once stood the main hall of Myriad Flowers' divine palace. Myriad Flowers' divine palace itself. Build it there." Staring at that spot, her eyes shimmered with crystalline light. At her words, Xingchen smiled, channeled a stream of immortal spiritual qi into the treasure, and cast it toward the former site of the main hall. Then he addressed the system. "System, activate the Tiangong mystic treasure." The moment he spoke, the system responded. "Ding, Tiangong mystic treasure activating. Host, please designate the location and provide a name." Hearing this, Xingchen replied silently in his mind. Myriad Flowers' divine palace. The instant the name was given, a thunderous boom shook the air. A towering golden palace erupted from the earth. Waves of fiery phantoms of divine phoenixes circled the edifice, amplifying its majesty. The entire structure reared like a coiled dragon, piercing the sky in a blaze of golden scales that radiated an awe-inspiring pressure. At its center hung a purple plaque bearing the 4 gilded characters, Myriad Flowers' divine palace, ancient and radiant, the very sight entrancing every onlooker. At the sudden appearance of the colossal palace, all stood aghast. Those 4 gilded characters perfectly matched every wish they harbored. Overwhelmed, Hua Xuan turned to Xingchen, the depth of her love nearly spilling over. Were it not for the surrounding disciples, she would have flung herself into his arms again. Instead, eyes brimming with affection, she whispered, "Thank you." At her gratitude, Xingchen smiled, and his next words sent a blush racing across her cheeks. The surrounding disciples of Myriad Flowers' divine palace stared in open envy as Xingchen, gazing tenderly at Hua Xuan, murmured, "No thanks are needed between us. Making my woman happy is something this emperor takes great pride in." His declaration deepened her flush until she resembled a ripe peach, even more alluring than before. The disciples, delighted by the scene, whispered among themselves, especially those who had followed Hua Xuan into Avicii Hell. "See, in Avicii Hell, I already knew Emperor Yi and our palace lord were a match made in heaven. Now he's admitted it aloud." Everyone saw it. Back at the Jubao Pavilion auction, they'd already fallen for each other. Wiles gift her the Azure Frostflower bracelet, a man's token of love. "So we're family with Emperor Yi now. Think we could dine at Tianxia Tower? That place is so pricey we could never afford it ourselves." Though they spoke in hushed tones, how could anything escape Xingchen's ears? Glancing at the bashful Hua Xuan, he proclaimed generously, "This emperor decrees, from this day forward, every disciple of Myriad Flowers' divine palace eats free at Tianxia Tower." The disciples erupted in jubilant cheers at his words. Noting the slight upturn of Hua Xuan's lips, Xingchen continued, "Let's continue. Snow Smoke, you point. This emperor will build." At that, the cheering disciples fell silent, stunned. Did he possess more of those miraculous treasures? Hua Xuan herself was astonished, yet she quickly said, "Such priceless artifacts mustn't be squandered. With Myriad Flowers' divine palace restored, I'm already overjoyed. We can raise the rest in time, and I promise to rest well every night." Xingchen merely clasped her hand, a wicked smile, curving his lips as he whispered in her ear, "Snow Smoke, there is no yours or mine between us. What belongs to this emperor is yours, and what is yours is this emperor's." At his teasing words and roguish grin, her freshly calmed cheeks blazed scarlet once more. The onlookers, witnessing their perfect rapport, felt stuffed with dog food, public display of affection at its finest. In the time that followed, Hua Xuan spoke and Xingchen acted. Within moments, the entire Myriad Flowers' divine palace stood complete. Finally, the eldest old ancestor of Myriad Flowers' divine palace embedded a new great formation into the spirit vein. The formation activated, the vein pulsed, and dense immortal spiritual qi flooded the palace. Thus, the reconstruction of Myriad Flowers' divine palace was finished, a miracle born before their eyes. Gazing at the golden-hued complex, everyone felt as though in a dream. The new palace surpassed the old in scale and majesty. By dawn, every major power across Central Emperor Province would surely be shaken by the news. With a wave of her hand, Hua Xuan dismissed the disciples to seek their new quarters. Built to mirror the old palace, the layout remained familiar. And because every structure, down to the furnishings, was system-crafted and of supreme quality, they could move in at once without any preparation. Thus the disciples, thrilled beyond words, vanished in the blink of an eye. Powerhouses such as Lu Ruosu bowed to the couple before departing, eager to discover what surprises the new palace held. Only Xingchen and Hua Xueyin remained. Her heart pounded wildly. Stealing a glance at him, she found his gentle smile fixed upon her and shyly lowered her head. Seeing her nervousness, Xingchen gave a tender smile and softly said, "All right, Snow Smoke should rest early. This emperor will head back. It's late. Tomorrow, after you rise, I'll come with a gift for you." With those words he smiled, turned, and prepared to leave. A trembling hand caught his arm. Hua Xueyin, cheeks crimson, fingers quivering with nerves, eyes resolute yet shy, whispered, "Snow Smoke wants you to stay. Stay and keep Snow Smoke company." Before he could answer, she grasped his hand and they vanished together. Chapter 139. Hua Xueyin's Deep Affection, a happy ending at last. At this moment, Hua Xueyin had already brought Xingchen to the top floor of the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, her personal residence. Standing in the new Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, she gazed down at the cluster of buildings shimmering with crystalline divine light, her flawless face full of wonder. She shyly looked at Xingchen beside her, her eyes brimming with deep affection. This man had prepared a life-saving hiding god talisman for her back in the Southern Emperor State. And when he saw her gravely wounded, he stormed the hidden Qin family alone, obliterating the entire clan with overwhelming might. The medicinal pill he gave her had healed her injuries instantly. It was obviously no ordinary treasure. Worried about her, he fetched a Tiangong mystic treasure overnight and rebuilt the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace in a short span of time. Recalling all this, the affection in Hua Xueyin's eyes grew even deeper. Sensing her devotion, Xingchen turned, smiled gently, and said softly, "I plan to give Snow Smoke her gift tomorrow, but I couldn't wait. Better to give it now. I'm sure she'll love it." As his words faded, Xingchen flipped his hand and a storage ring appeared before Hua Xueyin. Looking at the ring, she smiled sweetly, lifted her gaze to him, and asked shyly, "What kind of mysterious gift is this? Take a look. I'm sure Snow Smoke will adore it." Xingchen replied with a warm smile. Seeing his playful secrecy, Hua Xueyin swept the ring with her divine sense and found an ocean of high-grade divine stones plus several white jade bottles. Startled by the vast quantity of top-grade stones, she looked up to speak, but Xingchen gently cut her off. Though the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace has been rebuilt, its former spirit stone reserves are gone. These high-grade divine stones should keep the disciple supplied for a long while. Blushing, Hua Xueyin smiled and answered, "You're wrong this time. The palace's spirit stones, cultivation techniques, divine weapons, and divine medicines have always been kept by the old ancestor. Apart from the buildings, nothing was lost." Xingchen blinked in surprise, then continued, "Even better then. Inside are some heaven-repairing creation pills. One instantly restores immortal spiritual qi, effective even on heavenly emperor or ancient emperor experts. There's also some life divine spring. You already know its effects. Most important is the smallest bottle, 10 Chaos Great Emperor pills. An immortal emperor who takes one can break through straight to the Great Emperor realm. Tomorrow you can distribute these Chaos Great Emperor pills to the palace's immortal emperors. Take one yourself to advance. The Myriad Flowers Divine Palace's overall strength will soar." By now Hua Xueyin's eyes glistened with tears. Every item he named was a supreme treasure on the divine wilderness continent. Any single one could spark blood-soaked strife. Yet he had prepared them all for her. How could she not be moved? Unable to contain her feelings, she threw herself into his arms and wept aloud. Xingchen gently patted her back, soothing her tenderly. After a while her sobs quieted to soft breathing. Xingchen glanced down and smiled. Exhausted by stress, she had fallen asleep against his chest. Admiring her lovely face, he lifted her gently, carried her to the bed, and laid her down, only to find her suddenly clutch his hand in fright. Startled, he tumbled onto the bed. The two stared eye to eye as an unspoken tension filled the room. Flushed, Hua Xueyin whispered shyly, "Stay." Meeting her bashful, devoted gaze, Xingchen slowly nodded. This breathtaking woman who had boldly confessed in the alchemy chamber had long since stolen his heart. Bathed in moonlight, their silhouettes drew closer until the shy moon slipped behind a cloud. Early next morning, Xingchen opened his eyes to an exquisite face. Hua Xueyin seemed transformed, radiating a captivating charm. She gazed at him lovingly. Seeing him awake, she smiled tenderly and murmured, "Husband, you're awake." The word husband delighted him. he replied softly. My dear wife, when we return I'll follow tradition and give you a proper wedding. For now, you've been wronged. Nestling against him, she whispered, I'm not wronged. Being your wife already makes me blissfully happy. As long as I'm in your heart, nothing else matters. Moved, Xingchen held her tight, silently vowing to give her the grand ceremony she deserved. After rising, Hua Shuyan shyly changed the sheets. Xingchen spotted the telltale color and grinned proudly. She blushed crimson, carefully stored the sheet away, then gave him a coquettish glance before they walked hand in hand into the palace hall. The palace experts blinked in surprise to see their palace master arrive hand in hand with Xingchen. Noticing Hua Shuyan's newfound mature allure, they beamed with joy. They were delighted the pair had found happiness. Xingchen was truly a man worth entrusting. Amid the well-wishing stares, Xingchen murmured, I'll wait for you at Tianxia Tower. Once you finish your breakthroughs, bring everyone. I promise them a feast. Blushing, Hua Shuyan nodded gently. Unable to bear the matchmaking gazes, Xingchen stepped away and returned to Tianxia Tower in a single stride. Scene shift. Inside the Heavenly Dao sect's main hall, the middle-aged man on the throne addressed the gathered great emperor experts. Issue the order. No one is to cause trouble at Tianxia Tower. As for the myriad flowers divine palace, befriend them, do not offend. The assembled great emperors nodded. Surely every force in the Central Emperor Province, hidden world forces included, would issue the same command. Looking up at the heavenly Dao golden list still hovering above the sect, the man continued. The great era has arrived. The list has hung for days. It's time to open it. This time, the ancient god cemetery will likely see upheaval. Golden light flashed in his eyes as he declared, Carry out my decree. In 3 days, the heavenly Dao golden list opens and the ancient god cemetery appears. Chapter 140, The Secret of the Divine Wilderness, the Zixiao Divine Sword. At this moment, on the 9th floor of Tianxia Tower, Xingchen sat back in his chair, utterly at ease, watching the bustling scene around the tower with a smile on his face. He had already told Phoenix One that all the myriad flowers divine palace disciples would be coming to eat, so she might be a bit overworked. He hadn't expected to worry needlessly. With Phoenix One's strength, even if disciples from both the myriad flowers divine palace and the Yao race all showed up together, she could handle it. Xingchen leisurely sipped his supreme divine wine while seated by the window, and the chatter drifting up from below caught his interest. Senior Brother Wang, have you heard? Big news. The Hidden Qin family was actually wiped out. Their entire clan stronghold was reduced to nothing. Everyone was talking about it yesterday. They say it was the owner of this Tianxia Tower who did it. And get this, the Hidden Qin family even produced their divine decree, yet the owner of Tianxia Tower still obliterated them with a single slap. Hearing the words of the person beside him, Senior Brother Wang immediately spoke up. Exactly. Rumor has it the Hidden Qin family wanted to destroy the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. But the Lord of the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, Hua Shuyan, is very close to the Lord of Tianxia Tower. When he learned she'd been gravely injured, he flew into a rage and wiped the Hidden Qin family off the map. The scene was absolutely shocking. Listening to his companion, Senior Brother Wang couldn't help but sigh. I won't hide it. Junior brother, I was right there at the scene. It wasn't just shocking. It was earth-shaking and heaven crying. Even from far away, that overwhelming aura was paralyzing. Especially at the end, when the divine avatar descended, yet that mysterious owner of Tianxia Tower destroyed it with a single finger. That was a true god. Many people will never forget that blood-boiling scene. It also let everyone know that gods aren't untouchable. They can be defeated, and that above the great emperor realm, there are even higher realms, stunning countless cultivators. If not for the Lord of Tianxia Tower annihilating the Hidden Qin family, we'd never have learned the true realm divisions of ancient times. Hearing Senior Brother Wang's words, a middle-aged man nearby chimed in. Indeed, according to rumors from the hidden world forces, the so-called divine realm is merely a higher plane, and the ancient powerhouses of the immortal demon war vanished because they entered that plane. It said one must pass through the ancient god road to get there. Hearing the middle-aged man, another man joined the discussion. And then there's the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, completed overnight, a miracle. Towering palaces shot into the sky, stunning and intriguing everyone. Hearing this, everyone around nodded in agreement. The Myriad Flowers Divine Palace had indeed created a miracle, rising from nothing in a single night. Only a handful guessed that the one behind the miracle might be the Lord of Tianxia Tower himself. Also, the Heavenly Dao Golden List. Heavenly Dao Sect announced that in 3 days the list will open and the ancient god cemetery will appear. Then every prodigy in the entire divine wilderness will emerge, and the major powers will converge on the Central Emperor Province. It'll be another grand feast. Indeed, Any prodigy who can rank on the Heavenly Tao Golden List is acknowledged by the Heavenly Tao and stands at the pinnacle of the younger generation. Inside the ancient god cemetery, a fierce dragon-tiger battle is inevitable. At this moment, on the 9th floor of Tianxia Tower, Xingchen listened to the crowd's chatter and mused inwardly. So the ancient god cemetery is finally about to appear? The so-called secret of godhood will drive even more people mad now that everyone knows the divine realm exists above the divine wilderness. Watching the crowd below, Xingchen kept pondering a question many had overlooked. If a higher plane like the divine realm exists, then other planes must exist as well, just like the demon realm. Yet, ever since antiquity, instead of occupying some empty higher plane, the demon race has tried to invade the divine wilderness continent. Is it really just to enslave its people and use them as blood food? Or is there something in the divine wilderness the demon race desires? Xingchen had some speculations, but couldn't be sure. Divine light flickered in his eyes as the corner of his mouth curved. More and more interesting. Just how many secrets is this continent hiding? More and more interesting. Just how many secrets is this continent hiding? At this point, the divine wilderness continent was like an onion. Every time he peeled back a layer and thought he'd found its secret, countless more layers appeared beneath. He believed he'd uncovered the continent's mysteries, only to realize he'd seen merely the tip of the iceberg. The thought made divine light flash in his eyes. His curiosity only grew. Yet to probe those secrets, uncover the truth, and stand at the peak, one needed overwhelming strength, something most people could never achieve in their entire lives. For Xingchen, however, it was simple. He possessed the system, the only one across all realms. Thinking of a system, Xingchen realized he hadn't checked in today. Since he had nothing else to do, he might as well do it now. System, start today's check-in, he said aloud. System, start today's check-in. The moment his voice fell, the system's notification rang out. Ding, check-in in progress, successful. Congratulations, host, for receiving 1 million high-grade divine stones. They've been stored in your system space. Ding, check-in in progress, successful. Congratulations, host, for receiving the Zixiao Divine Sword. Zixiao Divine Sword, a heavenly Tao grade weapon born within the purple firmament divine lightning. It holds boundless might. Whoever wields it can instantly comprehend the law of lightning. Utterly young and fierce, it shatters all laws. Unique and supremely precious, it is the only divine weapon that carries the law of lightning within itself. Ding! Check-in in progress, successful. Congratulations, host, for receiving 1 Hunyuan Town Demon Stone. It has been stored in your system space. Hearing the system's voice, Xingchen lay back in his chair, perfectly relaxed. He hadn't expected the system to give him yet another Hunyuan Town Demon Stone, an absolute bane of the demon race. Inside the system space, he gazed at the Zixiao Divine Sword wreathed in purple firmament divine lightning and brimming with terrifying destructive power. When he saw the characters for Purple Firmament, an involuntary image of an incomparably beautiful figure flashed through his mind. Recalling that beauty, Xingchen realized that during his recent days in the Central Emperor province, he hadn't heard a single scrap of news about the Purple Firmament Palace, which struck him as odd. Given the magnitude of events here, it was impossible for the Purple Firmament Palace to remain completely uninformed. Could something have happened to them as well? The thought unsettled him. After all, his relationship with Xiaoyajun was anything but ordinary. Otherwise, back in Avicii Hell, he wouldn't have shown the Purple Firmament Palace such favor, nor entrusted Cloud Peace Spirit to deliver the undying divine tree flower, Pan Tao divine fruit, large quantities of high-grade divine stones, and supreme divine wine to Xiaoyajun. With that in mind, Xingchen decided to send Qing Feng to gather information about the Purple Firmament Palace. Suddenly, a new snippet of conversation from below made him smile faintly and murmur to himself. That's exactly like her. Chapter 141, Duoqing Valley, the Tianwu Pavilion's Conspiracy. At this moment, hearing the chatter drifting up from below Tianxia Tower, Xingchen couldn't help smiling faintly. It turned out that, for some unknown reason, the usually non-interfering Purple Firmament Palace and Tianwu Pavilion had been clashing repeatedly lately. The two hidden world forces had already fought several small skirmishes, and each time Tianwu Pavilion came off worse. Tianwu Pavilion couldn't swallow that humiliation. If they couldn't win openly, they'd strike in secret. They began ambushing Purple Firmament Palace disciples, but even that failed. They were killed in turn and became the laughingstock of the other divine wilderness powers. Thus, the master of Tianwu Pavilion, Hu Peng, challenged Xiaojun, master of Purple Firmament Palace, to a duel today, and the venue was set at Duoqing Valley in Central Emperor Province. Many powerhouse experts had already rushed to Duoqing Valley, eager to witness the clash of these two mighty experts with their own eyes. People from all Divine Wilderness factions were in the dark, but those from the various hidden world forces had faintly guessed the truth. Otherwise, the ever-low-profile Purple Firmament Palace would never have acted so. Tianwu Pavilion must have done something. And as to what exactly Tianwu Pavilion had done, the hidden world forces had more or less guessed. After all, Xiaoya Jun's Xian Phoenix body was a special physique that made every single person burn with envy. Xingchen rose to his feet. Thinking of that supremely beautiful woman whose gentleness felt like spring water and who made others feel bathed in a warm breeze, he couldn't help smiling softly. With a sweep of his divine sense, he found countless experts heading toward a huge valley tens of thousands of li away, undoubtedly the so-called Duoqing Valley. Judging the time, Xingchen knew Hua Xuyin and the others still needed a while to break through to Great Emperor Realm. After sending a voice transmission to Qing Feng and Yuan Long, he donned Sky Stealing Sun switching, stepped forward, and vanished. The scene shifted inside Duoqing Valley. Countless experts had already surrounded the valley, some sitting cross-legged in the Void Realm, some standing on perilous peaks, others perched atop ancient trees. Every gaze was fixed on the center of the valley. The whole valley was ringed by green mountains, with flowers blooming and fragrance filling the air. Most remarkable were two colossal ancient trees inside the valley, their thick trunks twined around each other as they grew, like a pair of lovers in passionate affection, clinging to one another, hence the name Duoqing Valley. At the valley center was a natural platform. A middle-aged man in black brocade sat cross-legged with eyes slightly closed. None other than the master of Tianwu Pavilion, Hu Peng. When many experts saw only Hu Peng and no sign of Xiaoya Jun, they began to whisper, "Hey, don't tell me Xiaoya Jun got cold feet? With that special physique of hers, who wouldn't be tempted? Who knows? This concerns the face of Purple Firmament Palace. If she doesn't show today, the palace will lose a lot of face." Listening to the surrounding chatter, Hu Peng, seated on the platform, curved the corner of his mouth in a subtle arc. Suddenly, a huge warship tore through the sky and appeared above Duoqing Valley. The purple lightning emblem on its hull made every hidden world expert's heart skip a beat as they muttered, "She's here." At that moment, several white-haired old women of formidable aura flew out from the great ship and stood in the Void Realm. A stunning figure slowly emerged from the vessel. Glancing at the platform, she stepped out and in a flash appeared upon it. That stunning figure wore a white palace gown, her entire being exuding a natural, unforced nobility. On her breathtakingly beautiful face was a gentle warmth that felt like a spring breeze. Seeing her, countless experts felt a covert, scorching heat flash deep in their eyes. This stunning figure was none other than the master of Purple Firmament Palace, Xiaoya Jun. Sensing her arrival, Hu Peng, who had been seated cross-legged, slowly opened his eyes, rose, and stepped forward. With that single step, the previously unremarkable Hu Peng became razor-sharp, as if transformed into another person entirely. A terrifying aura burst forth, shaking the entire Duoqing Valley. It was the might of a great Emperor Realm powerhouse. Looking at the breathtaking woman before him, Hu Peng made no effort to conceal the blazing heat in his eyes as he spoke aloud. "Palace Master Xiao, what boldness! You actually came. This emperor thought you might be too frightened to show. After all, your fame resounds through every hidden world force. No one is unaware of your name." Seeing the undisguised fire in Hu Peng's eyes and hearing his provocative words, Xiaoya Jun's expression stayed calm, as though she were long used to such scenes. Suddenly the image of a grinning white-robed figure surfaced in her mind. The moment that silhouette appeared, Xiaoya Jun felt an inexplicable sweetness and silently mused. Perhaps only he, after learning of my physique, looked at me without a trace of greed. Watching Xiaoya Jun remain unruffled, as if she hadn't heard him, Hu Peng frowned slightly, feeling ignored, and gave a soft snort. Only then did Xiaoya Jun come back to herself, regarding Hu Peng placidly as she said, You're not worthy of making this palace master feel fear." Hearing her words, the powerhouses of the various great factions around secretly remarked, "How domineering. She simply doesn't regard Hu Peng at all. He is the sect master of a hidden world force." With such an open slight, the two sides must have torn off every shred of courtesy. The reason surely ties to Xiaoya Jun's physique. Her Xian Phoenix body is simply too coveted. As Gumoping, the immortal emperor expert from Tianwu Pavilion slain by Xingchen, once said, "Everyone desires Xiaoya Jun. Some merely play the virtuous gentleman, while others lack the chance." The instant Hu Peng heard her reply, wrath surged, a terrifying aura erupted from his body, and, clenching his teeth, he punched straight at Xiaoya Jun. "Bold! Take an emperor's fist." That blow carried boundless destructive force, shaking the entire Duoqing Valley. A fearsome shockwave swept in every direction. Watching the frantic Hu Peng launch that dreadful fist, Xiaoya Jun remained serene. With no sign of tension, she clenched one hand, purple lightning swirling around it, and met his punch head-on. The next instant, a heaven-shaking boom resounded. As the two fists collided, a vast wave of energy exploded, shattering layers of space. The two immense, ancient trees that symbolized Duoqing Valley were instantly reduced to dust. A tempest of violent energy swept the whole valley, dispersing the rosy clouds overhead and raising endless smoke. Both figures recoiled. Xiaoya Jun only 2 steps, Hu Peng dozens before he steadied himself. Superiority was decided in a flash. Shock flooded Hu Peng's face. Disbelief blazed in his eyes as he cried out. Impossible! You've actually broken through to the great Emperor realm. Realizing he had let the truth slip, Hu Peng clamped his mouth shut and stared at her in stunned silence. Still unruffled, Xiaoya Jun spoke. As I said, you are unworthy. At her words, the onlookers instantly understood. Hu Peng had challenged her counting on his own great emperor cultivation, assuming she remained in the immortal emperor realm. They had never imagined her heaven-defying aptitude would let her advance into the great emperor realm in so short time. Now every gaze toward Hu Peng brimmed with scorn. Yet those mighty experts could not help sighing that, in this great era, immortal spiritual qi was several times richer than before, and countless supreme prodigies truly were cultivating far faster. At this moment, many hidden powerhouses from the surrounding factions looked at Xiaoya Jun with ever greater fervor. A great emperor Xian Phoenix body, if obtained, could even let a heavenly emperor directly break through to the ancient emperor realm. A strange atmosphere now pervaded Duoqing Valley. Hu Peng, seeing the contempt in everyone's eyes, seemed oblivious. He burst into laughter as if his scheme had succeeded and stared at Xiaoya Jun. Xiaoya Jun, did you believe reaching the great emperor realm would keep you safe? To draw you here, Tianwu Pavilion spared no effort arranging all of this. And what a pleasant surprise, exactly to my liking. Since your purple firmament palace has come today, don't even think of leaving. The moment Hu Peng finished, he swept his hand. Heaven and earth quaked, a terrifying phenomenon manifested, and a sight that stunned everyone appeared. Chapter 142, 9 Revolutions Heaven-Devouring Array, Xiaoya Jun's Courage. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened, watching the scene before them. Laws descended from the void realm, like chains of order coiling around the golden light barrier. On the golden light barrier, blazing flames radiated. These two terrifying celestial phenomena, coupled with immense tremors, caused a powerhouse with some discerning eyes to exclaim in surprise. 9 Revolutions Heaven-Devouring Array. Hearing the powerhouse's words, everyone around was immediately startled and couldn't help but discuss among themselves. 9 Revolutions Heaven-Devouring Array. The great array that can seal others' cultivation. Exactly. Inside the array, let alone a great emperor expert, even a heavenly emperor or an ancient emperor will have their cultivation sealed, rendered powerless, and can only be slaughtered at will. A powerhouse from a hidden world forces said, looking at the great array before them. However, I heard that this great array disappeared in ancient times, and the sect that created it was also annihilated because of this array. Since then, the 9 Revolutions Heaven-Devouring Array has vanished. Many forces searched for a long time, but all failed. I never expected that Tianwu Pavilion actually obtained it. Another powerhouse from a hidden world forces said, looking at the golden light filling the valley and the heavenly Tao laws continuously falling from the void realm. Yes, it seems Tianwu Pavilion had long been prepared. They set up this great array here in advance, just waiting for Xiaoya Jun to take the bait. What a pity. Now Xiaoya Jun is trapped, and her cultivation is sealed. In this round, Purple Firmament Palace will lose. This time, Tianwu Pavilion will probably make exorbitant demands. An old man stroked his grizzled beard, looked at Xiaoya Jun in the valley, and sighed softly. Hearing the old man's words, a young man with a sharp chin and monkey-like cheeks smirked, glanced at the white-haired old man, snorted lightly, and said eerily, "Oomph, old man, you're thinking too simply. Since Tianwu Pavilion went to such lengths, even willing to expose the 9 Revolutions Heaven-Devouring Array to trap Xiaoya Jun, is it merely for these external possessions?" Hearing the words of the young man with the sharp chin and monkey-like cheeks, everyone's expressions changed. The white-haired old man was even more shocked and exclaimed, "Could it be for the Xian Phoenix body?" Upon hearing Xian Phoenix body, the numerous Divine Wilderness faction around finally understood why Tianwu Pavilion would invest such a huge cost. let alone Tianwu Pavilion. Even they, at this moment, looked to Xiaoya Jun with fervent eyes. And at this moment, several old women from Purple Firmament Palace, exuding powerful auras, had already begun to continuously attack the 9 Revolutions heaven-devouring array. The terrifying attacks, striking the great array, only created ripples of golden light and had no effect whatsoever on the 9 Revolutions heaven-devouring array. Worry was etched on the face of each old woman. At this moment, inside the great array, Hu Peng finally revealed a sinister smile of a successful conspiracy and spoke to Xiaoya Jun, whose expression had slightly changed. Haha, Xiaoya Jun, this emperor has been preparing ever since the last failure to make you take the bait. I deliberately retreated to advance, just to let your Purple Firmament Palace taste a little sweetness. As fellow Hidden World forces, you wouldn't really think that Tianwu Pavilion's disciples are inferior to those little girls from your Purple Firmament Palace, would you? If not for this, how could this emperor pretend to be furious and challenge you to a fight? And you, this emperor calculated that you would definitely come. So even if the 9 Revolutions heaven-devouring array was exposed, this emperor wouldn't care in the slightest. How is it? Do you feel like your entire cultivation cannot be used? Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Hu Peng's face was full of sinister smiles, and his heart was incomparably relieved. All the frustration from these past days had finally been released. Xiaoya Jun, whose expression had slightly changed, secretly tried to mobilize the immortal spiritual power within her body, only to find that she indeed couldn't. Her willow-like brows immediately furrowed slightly. She looked up at the void realm above and realized that even with the combined terrifying attacks of the numerous Purple Firmament Palace powerhouses, they couldn't break through this array. As if understanding Xiaoya Jun's intention, Hu Peng smiled sinisterly, looking at the slightly frowning Xiaoya Jun. Haha, Xiaoya Jun, you don't need to look. Even if your Purple Firmament Palace's ancient Emperor Realm old ancestor personally rushed here, they wouldn't even dream of breaking this array. For a mere few great Emperor experts to try and break this array is simply wishful thinking. Hearing Hu Peng's words, Xiaoya Jun slowly calmed down and asked, "What do you want?" Hearing Xiaoya Jun's words, Hu Peng was momentarily stunned, then burst into laughter, pointing at Xiaoya Jun. "What do you think this emperor wants?" This emperor paid such a huge price, not hesitating to expose the 9 Revolutions heaven-devouring array, just to trap you. What do you think this emperor wants? At this moment, Hu Peng's eyes gleamed with fervent greed, and his gaze shamelessly swept over Xiaoya Jun, as if he was about to devour her alive in the next instant. However, the next moment, Xiaoya Jun took out a short sword and placed it against her neck, her expression calm, as if she had long been mentally prepared for this, and said, "This palace master would rather commit suicide than let you succeed." Hu Peng, seeing this scene, remained calm, but the several Purple Firmament Palace powerhouses above simultaneously shouted, "Palace Master, no." Xiaoya Jun at this moment looked up at the sky, thought of that white-robed figure, sighed softly, and secretly thought to herself, "You and I are ultimately without fate. I hope in the next life I can meet you again, even if this Palace Master is willing." Thinking this, and seeing Hu Peng's calm expression, an ominous feeling rose in Xiaoya Jun's heart. Without any hesitation, she swung her sword, intending to commit suicide. The Purple Firmament Palace powerhouses, seeing this scene, immediately shouted loudly. Their terrifying moves, without any reservation, blasted towards the 9 Revolutions heaven-devouring array. Boom, boom, boom. Huge sound erupted, but had no effect. And the surrounding Hidden World forces were also full of shock, their eyes filled with admiration, all secretly thinking, "This woman is so decisive, so courageous. She would rather perish than let Hu Peng succeed." Knowing she couldn't use her cultivation, she committed suicide without any hesitation, giving Hu Peng no chance. A young man, seeing this scene, couldn't help but exclaim, "This Xiaoya Jun, what a fierce woman, what great courage. This young master even admires her." Hearing the young man's words, a middle-aged woman from a Hidden World forces snorted lightly and said, "You're too young, what do you know? How many people are envious of the Xian Phoenix body, especially a Xian Phoenix body in the Great Emperor realm, which is even rarer. Only by truly dying will it be completely useless." This woman's decisiveness not only saves her from humiliation, but unless one possesses the great Tao, chaos body, she would eventually die anyway. What she did is the most correct course of action. It's just, Tianwu Pavilion has been preparing for so long, and Hu Peng is so calm. I'm afraid Xiaoya Jun, wanting to commit suicide now, will also be impossible. Indeed, no sooner had the middle-aged woman's words fallen than Xiaoya Jun's expression changed drastically. This was the first time Xiaoya Jun showed such an expression, At this moment, she actually found that she couldn't move a single inch. Seeing Xiaoya Jun's drastically changed expression, Hu Peng immediately cackled, saying sinisterly, "Xiaoya Jun, this emperor has been preparing for so long. How could I not have anticipated you trying to commit suicide? Wanting to commit suicide is impossible." As soon as his voice fell, a figure completely hidden in black mist appeared beside Xiaoya Jun. A powerful aura emanated from him. He was actually a heavenly emperor realm powerhouse. Everyone was greatly surprised. It turned out to be this figure, completely enveloped in black mist, who had frozen Xiaoya Jun. The various forces around were very incredulous upon seeing this black figure. This black figure was actually unaffected by the 9 revolutions' heaven-devouring array. As if sensing the doubts of the various forces around, Hu Peng smiled triumphantly and said, "This emperor has already completely controlled and modified the 9 revolutions' heaven-devouring array. Within this array, this emperor is heaven. I can seal anyone's cultivation I wish. Xiaoya Jun, this is your fate. Just accept it. Be this emperor's woman obediently. Although you won't escape death, this emperor will definitely cherish you well." As soon as Hu Peng's voice fell, a hint of evil appeared in his eyes, and he intended to walk toward Xiaoya Jun. The next moment, Hu Peng's expression also changed drastically. His eyes bulged out, full of disbelief, as he looked at the figure completely enveloped in black mist and said, "You, why would you do this? Quickly release this emperor." Hearing Hu Peng's words, all the surrounding forces were equally startled, then wore expressions of watching a good show. They hadn't expected such a major twist. This is called the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it. At this moment, only the figure completely enveloped in black mist slowly walked to the center of the platform and said sinisterly, "Such a heaven-sent opportunity, a Xian phoenix body in the great emperor realm, is enough to allow this emperor to break through to the ancient emperor realm and become a true supreme powerhouse. How could such an opportunity, appearing before this emperor, be missed?" Hearing the black figure's words, Hu Peng's expression almost twisted together. He said furiously, "So you secretly modified the Great Array? I trusted you so much, you." Uff. Hu Peng was overcome with anger, spitting out a mouthful of heart's blood, his face instantly turning pale. Everyone watched everything before them, secretly shocked. In the face of immense profit, no one could be trusted. As if too lazy to explain further to Hu Peng, the black figure turned to go toward Xiaoya Jun. However, the next moment, the black figure stiffened, and its powerful aura vanished. The words it spoke shocked everyone. Their eyes were filled with incredulity. A new situation had actually arisen. Chapter 143. Overbearing Entrance, Direct Annihilation. At this moment, the black-robed figure paused. Its powerful aura dissipated, the black mist filling its body vanished, and its entire form appeared before everyone. It was an aged figure, permeated with a dense death qi, its wrinkled skin like ancient tree bark, clinging to its cheeks. What was most shocking were the figure's eyes. Within the hollow eye sockets, there was not a trace of white, and the 2 eyeballs emitted a bloodthirsty crimson glow, with putrid blood constantly flowing from them. Seeing this, the usually calm Xiaoya Jun couldn't help but frown slightly. This person's appearance was indeed too terrifying, and the powerhouses from various surrounding forces, seeing the aged figure's appearance, dared not look directly. Such a visage was unparalleled in the divine wilderness, inspiring both fear and endless disgust. At this moment, the aged figure didn't care about its revealed true face. Instead, a sense of unwillingness appeared in its hollow eyes, and it let out an angry shout. "Who? Come out! Who exactly dares to ambush this emperor?" Hearing the aged figure's voice, the various surrounding forces were instantly astonished. This aged figure had also been immobilized, and through the 9 revolutions' heaven-devouring array, no less. How terrifying must this powerhouse's strength be? And at this moment, as if hearing the aged figure's voice, a terrifying pressure slowly descended from the depths of the void realm, making everyone feel a sense of powerlessness. A white-robed figure walked step by step from the depths of the void realm. With each step, a lotus flower radiating the power of life bloomed beneath its feet. Upon seeing this scene, people from the various major forces couldn't help but exclaim, "Step by step, lotus blooms, and supreme powerhouse." Watching the figure draw closer, everyone was greatly shocked when they clearly saw the young man's appearance, and they exclaimed in unison, "It's him, the Lord of the Underworld Tower. The man who single-handedly annihilated the hidden Qin family. Could it be that the Lord of the Underworld Tower is also interested in Xiaoya Jun's physique?" Nonsense! A great emperor realm Xian phoenix body would interest even a god. At this moment, the aged figure within the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array and the pale-faced Hupeng, upon hearing the discussions of the surrounding people, couldn't help but narrow their eyes, despite being unable to move. The name of the Lord of the Underworld Tower, in the divine wilderness today, surely very few people don't know it. Watching that figure descend from the heavens, countless young women around were instantly captivated, their eyes filled with shyness, making countless young men feel ashamed and filled with jealousy. Although that figure wore a mask, obscuring his face, the transcendent aura emanating from him, along with his white robes, made him appear like a god descended to the world, peerless and unparalleled. Just this alone was enough to make countless women's hearts flutter. This figure was none other than Xingchen. At this moment, Xingchen descended step by step from the sky, like a god, looking down upon the aged figure and Hupeng below. Originally, Xingchen came to Duoqing Valley, somewhat worried about Xiaojun, and had been meditating deep within the Void Realm. It wasn't until he saw Xiaojun attempting suicide that Xingchen, with his terrifying strength, immobilized the three of them, his eyes filled with killing intent as he looked at Hupeng and the aged figure. It turned out that Xiaojun and Hupeng were not immobilized by the aged figure, but were sealed by Xingchen's supreme cultivation through the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array. At this moment, as if sensing Xingchen's arrival, the aged figure immediately spoke. "Lord of the Underworld Tower, if you are also interested in this woman, this emperor is willing to hand her over. Please, Lord of the Underworld Tower, release this emperor. This emperor will never contend with the Lord of the Underworld Tower." At this moment, upon hearing that the newcomer was the Lord of the Underworld Tower, the aged figure seemed to have transformed, losing its anger and arrogance, and spoke respectfully. Hearing the aged voice, Xingchen calmly spoke. You are not worthy to negotiate terms with this lord." Hearing Xingchen's words, the aged figure frowned slightly, speaking with some anger. "Lord of the Underworld Tower, what is your intention in immobilizing this emperor without cause? This emperor has already voluntarily yielded this woman, and is willing to open the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array. Without this emperor, this 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array cannot be easily broken." Hearing the aged figure's words, Xingchen did not respond, as if the aged figure was not even worthy of speaking to him, causing everyone around to secretly marvel. This Lord of the Underworld Tower is indeed as overbearing as ever. Looking at the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array below, Xingchen directly raised his hand, without emitting any aura, and simply pointed a finger. The next moment, the order chains above the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array instantly snapped, and the terrifying scorching flames immediately vanished. The golden barrier of the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array shattered layer by layer under Xingchen's finger, transforming into golden light that filled the sky and disappeared. A formation plate emitting golden divine light appeared in midair. Xingchen casually grabbed it, and the golden formation plate appeared in his hand. Xingchen hadn't expected such a harvest. The corner of his mouth slightly curved, and he put away the formation plate of the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array. At this moment, sensing the disappearance of the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array, a trace of fear flashed in the aged figure's eyes, and the pale-faced Hupeng was even more shocked. Xingchen glanced at the two of them, then directly pointed 2 fingers, without the slightest hesitation. The aged figure and Hupeng didn't even have time to scream. They were directly annihilated by Xingchen, turning into nothingness. The various major forces around, seeing this scene, couldn't help but feel their hearts pound, secretly thinking, "This Lord of the Underworld Tower is decisive in killing. He absolutely must not be easily provoked." What these powerhouses didn't know was that from the moment they harbored thoughts about Xiaojun, their fate was already sealed. Flashing to Xiaojun's side, several old women from the Purple Firmament Palace also reacted, wanting to come and protect Xiaojun, because they had no idea whether Xingchen was a friend or foe. After all, the Xianyin Phoenix body was too coveted. However, Xingchen had finally met Xiaojun. How could he let these few disturb him? He merely turned his head and glanced at them, and the several old women found that their bodies were also unable to move. At this moment, Xiaojun looked at the white-robed figure before her, and a bright divine light instantly shone in her eyes. When she realized that the masked figure was merely wearing white robes, the divine light in Xiaojun's eyes instantly vanished. She smiled helplessly in her heart. Even the voice was different. How could she have mistaken the man before her for that naughty man? Could it be because she missed him too much in her heart? Thinking of this, Xiaojun sighed softly. Perhaps she truly had no fate with him. She had just escaped the tiger's maw only to enter the wolf's den. This might just be your destiny. Xingchen looked at the beautiful woman before him, gentle as water, and raised his hand, extending it towards Xiaoyajun. And Xiaoyajun, seeing the hand extended towards her, a clear tear slid down, and she closed her eyes, resigned to her fate. Seeing the tear slide down Xiaoyajun's face, Xingchen was slightly taken aback, then smiled helplessly. But the next scene directly stunned the eyes of the surrounding major forces. Their eyes bulged out, their jaws seemingly dropped, their faces filled with disbelief, and they all exclaimed in their hearts, "My goodness! Is there a new development?" Chapter 144, a shocking reversal, the power stunned. At this moment, Xingchen reached out and took the short weapon from Xiaoyajun's hand, then finally seemed to exhale in relief. Seeing the glistening tears on Xiaoyajun's stunning cheeks, Xingchen ached inside. Right before the stunned crowd, he gently wiped the tears from her face. The motion made Xiaoyajun, who had stood there in resignation, shudder, her brows knit tightly together. The surrounding powers all widened their eyes, scarcely daring to believe it. Surely the Lord of the Underworld Tower wouldn't do something like this in front of so many people. Yet looking at Xiaoyajun's furrowed brows, Xingchen felt distressed. Still, recalling how this girl always fell for others' traps and acted on impulse, he resolved to teach her a proper lesson today. But before that, to keep this beautiful woman from further sorrow, he would give her a subtle hint. So, with a wicked grin, he spoke aloud. "Palace Master Xiao, I only took your weapon to keep you from getting hurt. Today I've come merely to retrieve something from you." Seeing that Xiaoyajun still had her eyes closed and ignored him, Xingchen curved his lips and continued. "If Palace Master Xiao is willing to return it, I'll let you leave. How about it?" At his words, Xiaoyajun finally opened her eyes and looked at the white-robed, masked lord of the Underworld Tower. Remembering the intimate way he had wiped her tears, she glared at Xingchen in fury and snapped. "What thing?" Seeing her respond, Xingchen's lips curled in a mischievous smile as he said, "A piece of clothing." The various powers nearby were dumbfounded, utterly bewildered. But when Xiaoyajun heard those words, astonishing divine light burst from her eyes as she stared at the man in shock. For the first time, Xiaoyajun truly looked at the man before her. The tender gaze hidden behind the mask, the mischievous upturn of his lips, perfectly overlapped with the figure she had longed for deep in her heart. Though his voice had changed, Xiaoyajun knew this was the one she missed. Watching Xingchen's teasing smile, Xiaoyajun's face flushed crimson. She felt played, yet all her defenses melted away as she fumed. "You rogue, let this palace master go." Xingchen merely smiled at her reddened cheeks and said, "Think before you act from now on, understood?" Xiaoyajun gave a soft snort and said nothing, thinking inwardly. If I hadn't stubbornly ignored the advice of the sect senior, none of this would have happened. Just thinking of it now sends chills down my spine. Still, she refused to concede and only harumphed, giving no reply. Seeing this, Xingchen moved behind her, raised his hand, and landed a sharp slap on her pert bottom. "Got it now?" The slap turned Xiaoyajun crimson. Recalling how domineeringly he had fed her the life-divine spring, she knew he wouldn't stop until she answered. She immediately blushed and gritted out, "I understand. Oh, let me go, you." After one more swat, Xingchen finally released her with a wicked grin. The instant she could move, Xiaoyajun stepped back, cheeks burning, and shouted, "I already agreed. Why did you steal, rogue?" Watching her shy, flushed face, Xingchen chuckled. "To help you remember, don't be so impulsive next time." Xiaoyajun shot him a fierce glare, gave another soft snort, and spun away like a bashful girl. At this moment, every power present seemed petrified, frozen in place. They stared wide-eyed, mouths agape as if to swallow an egg, utterly dumbfounded. Several powerhouses even dropped their weapons without noticing. This was nothing like the plot they'd imagined. The Lord of the Underworld Tower didn't look like he'd come to seize Xiaoyajun's physique. This was clearly lovers flirting. Plainly, the Lord and Xiaoyajun had long known each other, their relationship anything but ordinary. Very likely, Xiaoyajun was his woman. With that, everything made sense. They understood why Xingchen had instantly killed Hu Peng and that old man. His woman had been bullied. If those two didn't die, who would? The powerhouses who had been hiding in the void realm moments ago lost the burning desire in their eyes at this scene. None dared let their gaze linger on Xiaoyajun. The domineering might of the Lord of the Underworld Tower had already been proven on the Hidden family. The Xian'in Phoenix body was tempting, but life mattered more. Seeing Xiaoyajun turn away in anger, Xingchen casually waved his hand and released the several powerhouses of the Purple Firmament Palace. The powerhouses of the Purple Firmament Palace were equally shocked. They knew their palace master best. Never had they seen Xiaoyajun act coquettishly like a little woman. Judging by appearances, the palace master and the lord of the underworld tower had known each other for a long time, and their relationship was anything but ordinary. From her manner, she placed complete trust in this man. It was simply something they couldn't imagine. Something must have happened between the two that they didn't know about. But seeing their palace master's flushed, shy face, they exchanged glances, likewise stood upon the void, and didn't go over to disturb her. Watching the somewhat angry Xingchen, Xingchen, thick-skinned as ever, walked to her side and held out a short weapon, saying, "You're angry." Looking at the short weapon in front of her, Xingchen gave a soft hum, took it, and turned away again. Watching Xingchen's back, Xingchen smiled faintly and said aloud, someone dares turn her back on this emperor. Looks like she wants another spanking." Hearing Xingchen's words, Xingchen spun around at once, glaring at him in anger. She really was afraid. She knew this man well enough to believe he'd actually do it. Seeing Xingchen pout in annoyance, Xingchen gave her a gentle smile and softly said, "Here are 2 hiding god talismans. If you ever meet danger, just channel immortal spiritual chi into them, and they'll dispel any threat. And take this 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array formation plate as well. In a crisis, it can produce unexpected results." The surrounding major powers couldn't help crying out when they saw Xingchen hand over the hiding god talismans and the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array formation plate. Hearing their exclamations, Xingchen realized how precious these treasures were. Her anger vanished, her face flushed red, and she gently shook her head. "These are too valuable. Keep them. This palace master won't take them." But Xingchen simply placed the items in her hand and calmly said, "The most precious thing this emperor owns has already been given to you. What are these trifles?" Hearing his words, Xingchen looked up at the man's mischievous smile, utterly bewildered. "What most precious thing did you give this palace master?" "I don't know anything about it." The surrounding powers grew curious. They had personally witnessed the might of the hiding god talismans and the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array. What object could possibly surpass those in the eyes of the lord of the underworld tower? And Xingchen didn't even know. Could she have lost it? Afraid she really had misplaced something, Xingchen began rummaging through her storage ring, wondering if she'd overlooked any gift Xingchen had previously bestowed. After checking for a while, she frowned and said, "The gifts you gave me last time are all here. Nothing's missing." Hearing that, the surrounding powers were now certain. Xingchen and the lord of the underworld tower had known each other long ago, and odds were she was already his woman. Recalling Hua Shuyan of the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, and now looking at Xingchen, Palace Master of the Purple Firmament Palace, every man present burned with envy of Xingchen. Yet Xingchen, hearing her words, hid a smile deep in his eyes and feigned shock. "This emperor's most precious heart has been given to you, and you didn't even know." Xiaoyajun's face flushed scarlet when she caught the laughter hidden in his gaze. She threw all restraint aside, her little fists raining blows on Xingchen while she cried, "Scoundrel, scoundrel, teasing this palace master. You villain." The onlookers who had waited with such curiosity now twitched at the corners of their mouths, force-fed a mouthful of dog food. Only after a long while did Xiaoyajun stop, cheeks still red, giving a soft hum and shooting Xingchen a provocative look. The assembled powers, stuffed full of their sweet display, had had enough. One by one, they turned to leave. But the next instant, a terrifying pressure descended, a domineering aura rising and forcing everyone to turn back in alarm. The scene before them left no one daring to lift their gaze. Chapter 145. One man's might shakes the divine wilderness, the flaw of the Xian, in Phoenix body. At this moment, sensing that many factions wanted to leave, Xingchen smiled faintly. His real thoughts had yet to be spoken. How could he let the great powers walk away? He said softly to Xiaoyajun, "Wait a moment, Empress." The words had barely left his mouth when Xingchen stepped straight into the sky above Duoqing Valley. A terrifying aura erupted and boundless might descended. Feeling that dreadful pressure, everyone froze in shock, halting their steps and turning to Xingchen. At this instant, Xingchen was wrapped in overwhelming majesty. As his gaze swept past, not a single person dared meet his eyes, all lowering their heads. An invincible presence spread out, and a commanding voice rang forth. "From this moment on, whoever dares covet my woman, I will personally visit to exterminate sect and clan. Any objections?" Xingchen's domineering declaration crashed like thunder through the void realm, carrying endless authority in every direction. At this time, Xiaoyajun lifted her head to the dominating figure standing in the void. Hearing his words, her flawless face flushed crimson. She feigned anger while inwardly thinking, "Scoundrel, whose woman does he think I am?" Though her face showed irritation, her heart brimmed with joy, and deep in her eyes flickered deep emotion. That stalwart white-robed figure had actually done this for her sake. With the might of one man, he intimidated the many powers of the divine wilderness, so they dared not raise their heads. Seeing the crowd bow, Xingchen curled his lips and spoke again. Since no one answers, you clearly understand my meaning. Everyone, go about your business. The moment the words left him, the dreadful pressure vanished. He stepped forward and appeared in front of Xiaoyajun. By now, the experts of the great factions, including the hidden world forces, were inwardly furious at being threatened, yet not one dared voice a protest. After all, the Qin family's fate served as a dire warning. Once the powerhouses dispersed, Xiaoyajun shot a fierce glare at the smiling Xingchen. Then she turned and stepped onto the deck of the warship. The other Purple Firmament Palace experts glanced at Xingchen and followed. Now, they knew exactly who this masked man was. Xiaoyajun had just said he once sent her a gift. They were aware that the only outsider's gift their palace master ever accepted was the one delivered through Cloud Peace Spirit by Demon Clan Emperor Xingchen. At this instant, they were still somewhat stunned. They had never imagined the Demon Clan Emperor was actually the Lord of the Underworld Tower. That peerless powerhouse who single-handedly annihilated the hidden Qin family. As for the rumor that Xingchen's fury had been from Myriad Flowers Divine Palace's master Huaxuan, the Purple Firmament experts paid it little heed. After all, such things were all too common on the Divine Wilderness continent. Suddenly, a cry of alarm rang out. Palace Master! Palace Master! Hearing the shout, Xingchen frowned slightly, stepped forward, and arrived on the warship's deck. Seeing Xiaoyajun's deathly pale face twisted in pain, Xingchen strode over and, without ceremony, lifted her from an old woman's arms into his own. Sensing the frigid yin qi surging within her, he found her body as cold as ice, shivering uncontrollably as though plunged into absolute zero. The surrounding temperature plummeted. Watching her tremble, Xingchen hugged her tightly. Seeing her bite her lip to stifle any cry of agony, his heart inexplicably ached. He immediately asked the Purple Firmament experts around him, "What happened? Why did your palace master suddenly turn like this?" An elderly matron looked at him and answered, "It's due to her physique. Though the Xian Phoenix body cultivates at tremendous speed, it carries a fatal flaw. Every 6 months, the Xian Qi within her erupts completely out of control, leaving her body icebound and unbearably cold. Each attack torments her for half a day at least, or up to a full day. When it passes, she slowly recovers, but needs an entire month to fully recuperate." Watching her suffering, the dreadful yin qi even frosted her hair, and a thin layer of ice formed across the deck. Xingchen's heart ached. Never had he imagined that gentle, tender woman endured such pain. He asked at once, "Is there any way to treat or relieve it?" The old matron, equally worried, replied, "Unless we find a man possessing the great Tao chaos body, who channels the most yang chaos qi from the lower abdomen into her meridians, the Xian yin qi can be suppressed and her agony ended at once. Yet the Xian yin qi is tyrannically cold. Any mistake is fatal. The two must meet without concealment. And the great Tao chaos body appears only once in ages, nearly impossible to find. Even if found and willing, our palace master would currently refuse." She glanced at Xingchen as she finished. If one seeks a complete cure, she must first break through to the ancient emperor realm, then perform dual cultivation with the great Tao chaos body bearer. Thus she can be reborn in nirvana, ascend to the utmost, and transform into the true Xian divine body, becoming a peerless. Before the matron could finish, Xingchen cut her off, carried Xiaoyajun, and vanished into the cabin, his domineering order echoing in the air. "No one enters the cabin. Guard the perimeter of the warship." Watching him disappear, the several old women of Purple Firmament Palace exchanged glances, unsure whether to obey. The eldest matron sighed and said, "This is her fate. You've all seen their bond. Anything but ordinary. Trust that he will never harm her. You can sense her feelings for him. It's only a matter of time. Since she trusts him, let us do our duty." At her words, the others sighed helplessly and scattered around the warship, guarding it firmly. Inside the cabin, Xingchen looked at Xiaoyajun, soaked in sweat from the pain, his eyes full of heartache. He realized that from the very moment he first saw her, he had already regarded her as his woman. Sensing his pained gaze, Xiaoyajun forced her eyes open. Knowing what he intended, the agony left her unable to speak. She could only shake her head with difficulty. Seeing her too pained even to talk, Xingchen hesitated no more and said, "Yajun, urgent times call for bold measures. Forgive me." As the words left him, he flicked his hand, and their clothes shattered into nothing. A faint blush crept across Xiaoyajun's pale cheeks. She shyly watched Xingchen, and in her daze she met his bright eyes. They were eyes free of any impurity, pure and luminous, filled only with desperate urgency to save her. She had never seen Xingchen so solemn. Tenderness flooded her heart, and even the torment she had suffered for years seemed to lessen. The next instant, a terrifying ancient aura surged from Xingchen's body. Gray chaos chi burst forth, and to Xiaoyajun's amazement, instantly enveloped them both. At that moment, she seemed to forget the pain. Shyly, she closed her eyes, feeling a warm palm press against her lower abdomen. A steady stream of chaos chi flowed from there into her meridians, and the icy, violent Xianin chi, as if meeting its nemesis, began to calm. Perhaps because the agony had finally eased and her mind was utterly spent, Xiaoyajun slowly drifted into sleep, a voice echoing in her mind. So it really is him. Chapter 146, The Tianwu Pavilion Old Ancestor Scheme, a sweet moment. At this moment, inside Central Emperor City, countless factions were discussing how the master of Tianwu Pavilion had been obliterated by a single finger of the Lord of the Underworld Tower. Some young people, hearing these powerhouses talk, felt their blood surge. In their hearts, they made the Lord of the Underworld Tower their idol. With the might of one man, he had forced every faction's experts to lower their heads in silence. None dared voice a word of dissent. What overwhelming dominance, what incomparable bearing. The scene shifted. Within Tianwu Pavilion, inside a resplendent palace, several great Emperor Realm experts paced back and forth, faces etched with worry. Suddenly, a terrifying figure descended. His aura was like an abyss, ancient and vast, actually splitting the palace's void laws in two and driving them aside. It was a super expert of the ancient Emperor realm. Seeing that dreadful form, the restless great Emperor experts below instantly knelt, respectfully shouting in unison, "Greetings, old ancestor! Greetings, old ancestor!" The figure, exuding dreadful pressure, slowly seated himself upon the main throne. Then a majestic voice rang out. "Why summon me? Where's Hu Peng?" Hearing that voice, the several great Emperor experts below paled. They exchanged glances until finally an old man clenched his teeth and addressed the figure above. "Old ancestor, the Pavilion Lord has been slain. Tianwu Pavilion has become the laughingstock of the entire divine wilderness continent. We beg the old ancestor to uphold justice." At those words, the figure on the throne shot to his feet. Boundless killing intent surged, a terrifying aura like a tidal wave that instantly flooded the entire hall. That murderous intent made the kneeling great Emperor experts below turn white and tremble. Watching the kneeling figures, the dreadful killing intent slowly faded. The figure sat back onto the throne, voice still laced with shocking murderous intent as he demanded, "Speak, what exactly happened?" Hearing the order, the old man below answered at once. "Reporting to old ancestor, the Pavilion Lord laid the 9 revolutions heaven-devouring array in advance, hoping to capture Xiaoyajun of Purple Firmament Palace so that the old ancestor could use the Xian Phoenix body to advance into the Void God Realm. Everything was going smoothly, but Eldering suddenly turned traitor. He wanted the Xian Phoenix body for himself. And the result? Suddenly, a crisp smack rang out. Hearing the old man's words, the terrifying figure on the throne slapped the armrest and roared, "Stick to the point." The kneeling group was startled by that abrupt fury, faces full of dread. The white-haired old man shuddered and hastily said, "Reporting to old ancestor, the Pavilion Lord was killed with a single finger by the Lord of the Underworld Tower. This Xiaoyajun of Purple Firmament Palace is actually that Lord's woman. The same Lord who single-handedly wiped out the Qin family." Hearing that, the terrifying figure slowly calmed and asked, "Reporting to old ancestor, exactly him. His strength is overwhelming. Even a divine decree was shattered by his finger. The hidden Qin family was annihilated by his palm. With the might of one man, he forced countless factions of divine wilderness to bow, publicly declaring that if anyone still covets Xiaoyajun, he will visit their gates and exterminate their clans." After hearing the white-haired old man, the terrifying figure fell silent. Moments later, he spoke. "Though the Lord of the Underworld Tower is powerful, Tianwu Pavilion is not to be bullied at will. Does he truly believe raw strength can suppress the desires of every old monster on this continent? Who can resist the lure of advancing from ancient emperor into void god realm? No rush. Someone will inevitably be unable to hold back and strike first. After all, the temptation of the Xian Phoenix body is too great. Even this emperor can hardly resist. For now, avoid direct conflict with the Underworld Tower. Keep Purple Firmament Palace under constant watch. Once those old things lose patience and make their move, this emperor will seize the chance to snatch the Xian Phoenix body break through to the void god realm, and instantly make Tianwu Pavilion the strongest power on the continent. Once the ancient god road opens, Tianwu Pavilion will soar to the heavens. Ha ha ha. The terrifying figure let out a triumphant laugh, then slowly vanished, as if he had never appeared. Scene shift, inside a ship's cabin. At this moment, Xingchen looked exhausted at the woman in his arms. Xiaojun was already fast asleep, gazing at this breathtaking beauty who could drive any man mad. Xingchen felt not the slightest impurity. With a wave, he clothed himself, then gently covered her with another garment. Afraid to wake her, he simply held Xiaojun and slowly closed his eyes, drifting off to sleep. Xingchen was simply too tired. About 2 hours later, Xiaojun, curled against his chest, slowly opened her eyes. Looking up at the man holding her tight and at the white robe draped over her, Xiaojun's cheeks flushed crimson. She rose gently from Xingchen's embrace. Seeing he still slept, she smiled and reached to lift the mask from his face. Instantly, a terrifying aura erupted from Xingchen, and a cold light shot from his eyes. It made Xiaojun freeze mid-gesture. Recognizing her, the dreadful aura vanished the next instant. Only then did Xiaojun smile and remove the mask from Xingchen's face. Seeing that familiar visage, a faint blush crept across Xiaojun's flawless cheeks. Recalling those dazed eyes she had glimpsed, pure, free of any taint, only frantic concern to save her. Xiaojun couldn't help but look into Xingchen's eyes. Now they burned with teasing heat. And at the slight upturn of his lips, she glanced down and realized her lifted hand had let the white robe slip, revealing all her beauty to Xingchen. With a soft cry, Xiaojun spun around. A flash of white and a red palace dress already clothed her. Suddenly, Xingchen stretched out his arms, and amid her startled cry, he pulled Xiaojun into his embrace. Watching the struggling Xiaojun in his arms, a smack sounded. Xiaojun instantly stilled, face scarlet as she stammered. You hit this palace again. Only then did Xingchen speak softly. All right, stop squirming. This emperor holding his own woman is heaven's law. Be good. Hearing him, Xiaojun felt secretly delighted, yet gave a soft hum, stubbornly saying, Oomph. When did this palace ever agree to be your woman? Xingchen feigned heartbreak. What? After everything we've done, you still won't take responsibility? This emperor worked so hard to treat someone, only to be discarded. A soft puff of laughter escaped. Seeing Xingchen's pitiful act, the bashful Xiaojun couldn't help but laugh. At that instant their bond deepened, a sweet happiness filling both their hearts. Even the air inside the cabin seemed to grow sweet and warm.